Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. I became Tony's younger brother. Chapter 1. After an endless coma, Locke woke up leisurely, with noisy sounds echoing in his ears, making people slightly uncomfortable. Shocked, genius weapons inventor Tony Stark was attacked in Afghanistan 3 days ago. His life and death are still uncertain. Chairman of the Stark Group. Locke opened his eyes and looked around, dumbfounded. The luxuriously decorated room is full of medical equipment, and there is a huge floor-to-ceiling glass. He is lying on a soft hospital bed, the sun shines on him through the glass, and the dust floats in the air. Where is this? What happened? Just when he fell into self-doubt and wanted to see if his waist was still there, his brain suddenly felt a sharp pain, and a large number of memories came flooding back. Rack Stark. Howard's second son fell into a deep sleep strangely when he was 13 years old, and has been there ever since. Of course, this is from the outside world. According to memory, the predecessor was actually always awake and had a clear perception of the outside world. The warmth of the rising sun, the ticking sound of raindrops hitting the glass, or the news that so-and-so has rounded up the magazine girl again. The most profound thing is that he was abandoned by the entire medical profession. When he was transferred to this room, Tony, who had never shed tears when the old Stark died, collapsed for the first time. Tony would often sit by the bed and chat with the original about some interesting childhood stories. It was obvious that they had a good relationship as brothers. This also caused the original body to be sad for a while after hearing the news of Tony's attack. This gave Locke a chance. So I have traveled through time. I am still the famous Stark family. Locke stared at the ceiling in a daze, without any joy in his eyes. As we all know, Tony's attack was not an accident, but was carefully planned by some old guy. If he knew that Locke woke up at this critical moment, he might not survive tonight. A true hell-style start. He put up his hands and tried to sit up. But after trying for a long time, except for the thumb that was willing to move twice, there was no response from other parts. This body has been lying on the bed for more than 10 years. If it wasn't for the daily massage and dredging of the blood by specialized medical staff, it would have died of various complications long ago. Am I going to lead a dog like this? Locke's eyes dimmed. Suddenly, he felt his chest was slightly hot and itchy. While feeling uncomfortable, a green panel appeared in front of his eyes. Human G has officially entered the awakening stage, and can be recharged to exchange skills. Skill exchange list. Animal call. Selling price. 5 energy points. More skills to be unlocked. Balance. 1 energy value. Remarks. Supernatural energy is the best. Is this my golden finger? Locke felt the gem pendant on his chest and let out a sigh of relief. It was a gift from his mother before he died, and he was wearing it all the time, so the medical staff didn't take it off. Fortunately, in various senses. After a moment, the panel disappears. Locke felt his right palm and face regain consciousness, and he tried to open his mouth. Jarvis. As soon as he finished speaking, the screen above his head lit up, and a unique electronic voice sounded in the room. Sir, I'm here. Congratulations on your waking up. I'm calling the medical staff for you. Wait, Jarvis, don't call the doctor yet. Locke interrupted hastily, his teeth clicked twice, and his face suddenly wrinkled. It hurts. He didn't dare to let the doctor come over now, who knew if there was Opidre's eyeliner in it. To be on the safe side, it takes 1 day. After moving for a few times, his mouth felt comfortable and Locke asked again, Jarvis, where is Pepper now? Before falling asleep, Pepper was already Tony's assistant, so Jarvis did not become suspicious and directly called up the information on the screen. Also appearing was a fat middle-aged man. Sir, Ms. Pepper is now in the company, do I need to let her come over? Also, this is Mr. Stark's bodyguard, Happy. He was also the director of Iron Man 1, Locke groaned inwardly. Glance lower right, 4:30 p.m. No need, just send Pepper a message and ask her to come over after get off work at 5 o'clock, the important point. Luke said seriously. Don't tell her that I woke up, and call Happy along the way. He couldn't, and didn't dare to bet on Pepper's acting skills, whether he could fool Obadiah's old fox. Quote. Understood, sir, the message has been sent. Is there anything else I can do for you? No more. Wait, Locke pondered for a moment and said. Tell me about the changes that have taken place in New York during the years I have been sleeping. Focus on companies and various organizations. This time it took a while for the picture to appear on the screen. As Jarvis narrated, Lark also learned more about the world. Unlike movies, Stark Industries in this world is located in New Jersey, which is what New Yorkers commonly call the countryside. At the same time, because of Lark's deep sleep, Tony is also based in New York. This manor, covering an area of 2 kilometers, is located in Sandpoint, Long Island. There is a forest in front and dozens of kilometers of sea behind. Banknote capacity is full. Just a little beep. The Great Gatsby was filmed here. During the gap, Lark tried to restore consciousness to more parts. He first controlled the palm of his hand to make various movements to speed up the blood flow. After the hands are warm, increase the intensity and try to move the arms. Gradually, he felt pressure coming from his wrist, then his elbow, and then his arm. A few simple actions made Lark blush, and a thin layer of sweat appeared on his forehead. Call. Lark leaned on the pillow and breathed heavily, so tired. This body is too weak. According to this progress, it is estimated that Tony will be back before I stand up. It is also possible that I went to see him. Haha. After calming down, he remembered the scene where his right palm recovered instantly after the panel disappeared. It seems that if you want to stand up in a short time, you can only rely on gems. Thinking of this, he was looking forward to Pepper coming soon. He's a wretch now, said that Sao arrived. Just as Locke closed his eyes, there was a sudden roar outside, and Jarvis reminded. Sir, Ms. Pepper is back. Got it, let her come here. As soon as the words fell, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the ear, which proved that the mood of the visitor was not calm at the moment. Jarvis, you called me here. Is something wrong with Luke? Where are the medical staff? Swish. A beautiful figure stepped into the door and shouted, her golden hair stuck to her forehead with sweat, and her chest heaving violently. Lark reluctantly raised his right hand to say hello. Hi, long time no see, Pepper. What, Lark, you're awake, Pepper screamed. Surprise suddenly appeared on her haggard face, and she rushed to the bed to hold his hand. Did you wake up this afternoon? How does your body feel? Are there any discomforts? Do you want to call the doctor? Locke froze for a moment and then realized that this man who had just lost the most important man in his life had such violent mood swings. Lark controlled his slightly stiff face to smile. Today is the most comfortable day I've ever felt, don't worry. That's good. Pepper also noticed that he had lost his composure just now, and immediately adjusted to control the rise of the hospital bed. Is this angle okay? Very suitable. Just as he was talking, a fat middle-aged man walked in from the door. He was stunned for a moment when he saw Lark. He was happy but not too surprised. This is in line with Luck's expectations. Happy's joining of the Stark group happened after he lay down. They are not familiar with each other. Lark nodded to him and stretched out his hand. First meeting, Lark Stark. Night. Stark Manor is brightly lit. Pepper's phone is constantly busy with company matters, and Happy is out making a big purchase. Jarvis developed a recovery training plan that required a lot of equipment. Naturally, nutrition also needs to be kept up, and Happy has to bear such an important responsibility. Money. Stark. Not bad money. Luck controlled the wheelchair with his right hand and went down to the second floor through the elevator. That's Tony's workshop. Ding. In the huge underground space, on the right is a luxurious team composed of various limited edition sports cars, antique cars, and even a few motorcycles. It's the ultimate car lover's dream. His hands passed over the beautiful paint surface one after another, and the roar of the engine seemed to ring in his ears. Hey, stopping, there is a pile of mechanical equipment in front of you. On the dark gray wall, 3 flickering industrial jacks are lined up. Tonight's goal is charge. Locke stretched his right hand into his chest, grabbed the black chain and pulled it out. A small green gemstone appeared in front of his eyes. The human G gem, its golden finger. Whether you can turn the tide against the wind is entirely up to you. Lark held the gem in his mouth, stared at the panel, raised his right hand high, and stretched out 2 fingers. Zizzy. In a blink of an eye, Locke found himself in a jungle, where there were mountains, water, and a huge statue. Before he could see the specific appearance clearly, the scene switched. There was a whistling wind in the ears, and the field of vision was white, and there seemed to be a few black spots moving quickly in the corner. I still haven't seen it clearly, and my head is dizzy for a while. It's black in front of you. Energy value plus 0.01. Energy value plus 0.01. Energy value plus 0.01. 5 in the morning. The sky was slightly bright, and the sun peeked out from under the sea level. The golden light beam hits the ceiling through the window, and the studio is brightened up. The one-armed robot in the corner raised its head, looked left and right, then grabbed a fire extinguisher with its dark gray metal claws, and, Gululu, came to the wheelchair. Rucker was sound asleep with his head in the wheelchair. The golden hair stands upright, like a golden lion king, and the sound of, ho-ho, is made from his mouth from time to time it was electrocuted. The robot's claws were finely adjusted up and down, and white powder spurted out with a click sound. Puff, ahem, cough, cough. Who is it? Locke woke up instantly with a jolt, and stretched out his left hand to block his eyes, but unfortunately he still couldn't stop his fate of transforming into Hello Kitty. What the hell is this? Is it Obadiah? Cough 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 cough. Jarvis, stop it. The powder disappeared, and Locke put down his hand, only to find that it was a robot made by Tony, Derpy. Compared with Jarvis, it is not very intelligent, and due to physical limitations, it can only perform some relatively simple jobs. Lark wiped off the powder, went around behind it and grabbed the power cord, pretending to be vicious. Do you know who I am? Perhaps sensing the danger to his life, Hawkeye nodded quickly. Squeak. Will you dare in the future? Squeak. You know what's going on. Lark threw away the power cord and imitated Tony's tone. Clean up quickly. If there is a little powder on the ground, I will donate it to the school. Hawkeye lowered his head and, Gululu, walked to the corner. Rucker enters the elevator. Then, I rely on. What kind of rubbish is this? There is only 0.1 energy point in one night. Is there anything wrong? Balance. 1.1 energy value. Skill. Animal summoning. Selling price. 5 energy points. To be unlocked. Remarks. Supernatural energy is the best. The veins burst out and the hands creaked. A moment later Rucker was leaning against the wheelchair like a deflated ball. It turns out that, supernatural energy is the best, means this. Power efficiency is too low. He worked hard for 8 hours last night to recharge 0.1 energy value. Subtracting the time he spent eating and training, he could recharge up to 0.25 in one day. Converting to 4 energy values, it would take him 16 days to recharge. Too slow. And many more. Lark lowered his head suddenly. He seemed to be leaning, just now. Gudong. With a feeling of apprehension, he tried to make a movement with his left hand. The thumb moved, the index finger moved, the middle finger moved, then the palms, arms, and finally the entire upper body. Locke was ecstatic, waving his right fist around his waist. Yes, yes, yes. Sure enough, he guessed it right. While charging, the gem accelerated his body's recovery. One night saved him half a month, and he could stand up if he did it again. Plug in YYDS. Thinking about it this way, he felt that the powder in his mouth was sweet. Weird. Afghanistan. In the dark and cramped cave, Tony opened his eyes suddenly. The eyes were still in shock. Soon he found the iron plate on his chest, and asked the man in front of him, "Where am I? What did you do to me?" "I saved your life, stopped the shrapnel from entering your heart." As soon as Ethan finished explaining, a group of armed gangsters rushed in. The leader pointed at the picture and muttered a lot to Tony. Ethan translated. "He wants you to build the Jericho missile." Tony's eyes changed drastically, and after a while he raised his head and said firmly, "Make a deal. I can't die, my brother is still waiting for me at home." Hurry up, you should lose weight, Happy." On the arena, two figures are fighting fiercely. Rucker moved quickly on his tiptoes with nimble steps, always hitting the target with every strike. Happy's white training clothes were soaked through, and his elbows hung limply on his chest. Suddenly, a light flashed in Locke's eyes. The left foot stepped out, the waist and abdomen drove the body to twist, and the right hand turned into a fist. Snapped. Bang bang bang. Happy couldn't resist and took a big step back. He sat down on the ground and the ring shook. Hoo-hoo. Lark, you are so powerful. I can't beat you now. Haha, I'm just faster than you, barely gaining the upper hand. If you really want to hit me, I'm definitely not as good as you. Locke wiped his sweat and said with a smile. Thanks to having you as my partner, I can improve so fast, otherwise I would still look sick. At this time, it has been half a month since Lark woke up. With the help of the Human-G gem, he successfully promoted Shinhao from a weak scholar with no power to the level expected of a normal adult male. After all, I have been sleeping for more than 10 years. Bang bang, the two warriors have washed up and had dinner. Pepper appeared at the door with a smile on his face. Understood. Receive. There was soft music playing in the restaurant, plus a bad joke or two popped out of Luke's mouth from time to time. The atmosphere is quite relaxed, not as depressing as imagined. You know medium rare steak, why don't you say hello to medium rare? Luke asked, forking a piece of meat. Pepper gritted her teeth and thought about it carefully before shaking her head. I don't know. His eyes moved slightly. Pepper, you know me. Happy stopped cutting the meat, put down his knife and fork, met their eyes, and said seriously, when I was in college, I was commonly known as a bad student. Rucker and Pepper were stunned at the same time. A few seconds later, Pepper was the first to hold back. He leaned on the table and shrugged his shoulders. Heck. It's you, Happy, who can say such cowardly words in the most serious manner. Jingle bell. At this time, the mobile phone on the table rang. Caller ID, Chairman Obadiah. Tony disappeared, Lark was a waste, and Oba became the interim chairman of Stark Group. Pepper's laughter stopped and looked at Lark. Happy put down his knife and fork. They already knew that the mastermind behind the attack on Tony was Obadiah. During this time, they didn't go anywhere except the company. Happy was armed with a gun throughout the entire trip and had 2 body armor vests in the car. Lark took a sip of red wine and nodded, take it. Pepper took a deep breath and connected the phone. Obadiah, contact me so late, is there something wrong with the company? A laugh came from the other end of the phone. Ha, the company is well managed by me, so don't worry. I see you have worked hard during this time. Tomorrow is Saturday, so give yourself a few days off and relax. Women, don't treat yourself so badly. Go shopping, do spa. Pretty good, right? Quote. Obadiah spoke eloquently, with a gentle voice, full of elders' concern for young people. Changing to the previous Pepper would definitely fall into the trap, now. That's exactly what I mean, thank you, Mr. Obadiah. Pepper agreed. This has been discussed long ago. After finishing speaking, she was about to hang up the phone, when a sentence came from the phone. Pepper, why didn't I see Luck's medical report during this period? As soon as these words came out, the restaurant immediately heard the needle drop. Luck was sipping his wine glass, his face expressionless, he didn't know what he was thinking. Pepper's small hands trembled, and he immediately stabilized his mind. Maybe there is a system error. I'll ask Jarvis to check and send it to your computer tomorrow. The voice on the other end of the phone suddenly turned cold. Understood. Beep. After hanging up the phone, Pepper hesitated to speak, and gritted his teeth for a moment. Why don't we call the police? The information has been collected almost. No, Rucker and Happy interrupted at the same time. The two looked at each other. Lark stretched out his hand to signal, you speak first. Happy sorted out his thoughts. As the boss's bodyguard, I am familiar with the company's security. During his tenure, Obadiah has been selecting talent from various police systems in New York. It can be said that this is what he says. Moreover, the company's donations to various parties over the years have been presided over by Obadiah. So, after saying that, he shrugged his shoulders, and it was self-evident what he meant. At this moment, Lark dropped a bombshell again. I asked Jarvis to check the company's equity, and found that since the accident, several big guys on the board of directors have been eating up the company's shares. Now apart from me and Tony, the one with the most shares is Obadiah. They know the real face of Obadiah, you guessed it. What will they do? Quote. Lark turned the wine glass and said quietly. Forced into the palace. The two of them exclaimed at the same time. Wrong. Beheading. Locke added inwardly, black marinated eggs are not so kind. Details of the original work. What did Tony do from the return of Afghanistan from S.H.I.E.L.D.'s visit to Avengers IV? Pay money, land, and weapons. The results of it. He died, the company was gone, leaving orphans and widows. The black braised eggs go one step further, with spaceships, beautiful scenery, and coconut milk. I want you to go to hell. Pepper's face turned pale with fright, and her phone dropped to the ground. Happy silently wiped his pistol. She never thought that the Stark group, which was so prosperous on the surface, would be in this situation secretly. As soon as Tony disappeared, all kinds of monsters appeared. Pepper covered her shoulders with her hands and couldn't help shrinking into a ball, as if this was the only way she could feel a touch of warmth. Locke looked at her dazed look, and didn't make a sound to comfort her. The story has just begun. The days ahead are still long. Be stronger. Lark raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. Snapped. Jarvis, the villa is on alert. Clap clap clap. Click 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 click. The peripheral lights were turned off one by one, and the barricades at the entrance were raised. Rows of machine guns burst from the ground. Several red lights swept across, and the terrain around the manor was presented indoors. Sir, everything is ready. Lark patted Happy on the shoulder, turned and left. The manor is handed over to you. Studio. Lark walked out of the elevator and asked, Jarvis, are you ready with what I want? Sir, it's ready, over there. The lights came on, and in the corner lay a large black iron box 2 meters wide and 1 meter high with the word, Stark, printed on it. Lark strode forward and entered the password. Caca. A dim light flashed, and a pure black motorcycle appeared in front of my eyes. All glass dashboard, folding handle, carbon fiber body. Cold. This is Locke's first feeling when he gets started. Put down the side panels, the headlights of the motorcycle will turn on, and the motorcycle will start to drive out of the box, exposing the neatly stacked firearms on the side. AR-15 automatic rifle, 2 Colt 1911s, several magazines, and 3 large pineapples. And most importantly, clothing. The clothes are divided into 2 pieces, upper and lower, made of special materials and feel slightly hard to the touch. According to Jarvis, there is no problem with resisting small caliber pistol fire at close range. Without saying much, Lark immediately changed his clothes. With the pistol tucked under his arm and the magazine fixed at his waist, he strode towards the motorcycle. Picking up the rifle and stuck it by his leg, he put on his helmet and said softly, Jarvis. The display screen lights up and an electronic voice rings in the ear, Good evening, sir. The route has been planned. Leave the transportation and monitoring to me. Have a good time. Helmet Rack's mouth curled up. Oba came on my behalf. Skill animal summoning. Selling price, 5 energy points. Balance, 4.9 energy value. Manhattan. Obadiah closed his eyes tightly, leaned back, and pressed a few photos under his feet. The murmur echoed in the room. Luke, why are you waking up at this hour? Ah. Opening his eyes again, it was icy cold. Obadiah pressed the red button on the table and said indifferently, Let Hall come to my office. A man's hoarse voice came from the speaker, Got it. Snapped. Letting go, Obadiah picked up a cigar and lit it, the gray smoke flickered on his face. On Highway 495, Locke rode a motorcycle through the night, and there was a buzzing sound in his helmet. Sir, this is the entire recording. Great job, Jarvis, stay tuned. Passive defense is not his style. Luck twisted the accelerator, and the motorcycle turned into black lightning and disappeared into the night. After getting off the bridge, Lark, under the guidance of Jarvis, focused on dark alleys without cameras. After 10 minutes of this, we stopped in a forest. 100 meters ahead is Obadiah's villa, with cameras covering all 4 corners, and the security at the entrance is faintly visible. Lark took off his gun and hid the car in the grass. Squatting on the ground, he asked, Jarvis, report the situation. The red light flashed and the screen immediately projected the topography of the villa. Sir, the surveillance and power supply have been taken over by me. The positions of 10 security guards with weapons have been marked. Obadiah is currently in the study on the 2nd floor. Understood. Notify me immediately of any changes. After turning off the map, Lark opened the panel. Balance. 4.9 energy value. I hope my guess is right. Call. Putting aside distracting thoughts, Lark pulled out his pistol and headed towards the villa. The advantage of the black clothes was revealed. As long as he held his breath and stood in the shadows, he couldn't see anyone here unless he got close. A minute later, Lark walked behind the security booth at the entrance, and through the wall, two red figures appeared in front of him, infrared scanners. The fat man on the left is leaning against the wall, nodding his head from time to time. On the right, based on the red tint rising above his head, he must be smoking. Lark looked at the time and decided to make a quick decision. Immediately ordered in a low voice, "Jarvis, the monitoring is all over to you. If there is any movement later, you will be the first to cut off the communication, understand?" "Sir, I am a professional in this area, so don't worry." Lark. He took out the silencer from his waist and put it on. Lark quickly ran behind the wall with his pistol in hand, squatted down and walked around to the left. He could hear a faint grunt. At this time, the smoker just raised his head and blew out smoke rings. Good chance. Lark pushed open a small gap with his left hand, and quickly pulled the trigger with his right hand. Puff puff. The eyebrows of the two of them flicked, and their bodies went limp. Lark rushed into the room quickly, ignoring the corpse on the ground, and opened the panel immediately. Energy value +1. Energy value +1. Balance. 6.9 energy value. Old Mo sincerely does not lie to me, the soul is indeed valuable. Why don't you exchange your skills first? Jarvis is watching anyway. Lark glanced at the villa and thought to himself. In his previous life, he was the type who could never draw cards 10 times. He was also an African, and had a very poor gaming experience. I can't be so unlucky with the exchange system. Locke closed the door on tiptoe, and the Queen Mother of Sancheng prayed routinely and then opened the panel. Whether to exchange skills. Animal call. Selling price. 5 energy value. Balance. 6.9 energy value. Exchange. The exchange was successful. The skill has been refreshed. Great. Let me see the skill effect is hot, so hot. Before Lark's smile faded, his chest felt hot. He opened the zipper, and the gem sticked to his chest, giving off a shimmering light. The light turned into strands of silk thread and traveled through the whole body, and Locke felt that he had never felt so comfortable. It's as cool as eating ice cream on a hot summer day, and as warm as drinking hot soup for a night in a world of ice and snow. He almost yelled out, but fortunately he held back in the end, or he would have almost died. Jarvis has been recording. This feeling came and went quickly. After a few seconds, I pulled the zipper and opened the panel again. This time there was an extra paragraph of small words at the beginning. Every time energy is consumed, part of it will be used to transform the body. A strong penguin wind blows towards us. Translate. Recharge money, can become stronger. It seems that I have another way to upgrade. Luck complained and continued reading. Animal summoning. Spend energy to summon animals from human G. Animal exchange list. Ordinary life. Snake, rat, insect, ant, eagle, rhinoceros, elephant, dog. Selling price. 1 energy value piece. Extraordinary life. Alienated jaguar, shadow black panther. Selling price. 10 energy value, head. Note, the current upper limit is 10. Balance. 1.9 energy value. Note, the summoned animals can be recalled at any time. Rats and elephants are obviously so different in size, but they are priced the same. How embarrassing is it that you let the elephant family know this? Lark's head was full of black lines. However, when he saw the price of extraordinary life, he couldn't help but cursed, this is too cheap. Only 10 and so on. Lark sat upright and clapped his fingers like a child. I have a balance of 1.9, and there are 8 security guards in it. Calculated at 1 point each, the total adds up to an energy value of 9.9. Then shouldn't I go back and touch it again? A few hours of electricity can be exchanged for a shadow black panther. Locke's eyes became brighter and brighter, and finally he slapped his thigh suddenly. It's done. He quickly stood up and closed the door gently, returned to the wall and climbed up the tree 2 or 3 times, and his vision became clear. There are flower beds on both sides, and an avenue in the middle leads directly to the fountain. 4 security guards stood guard with guns outside the villa. This configuration is a bit tricky. Locke's fiery heart calmed down. Buzzing. Snapped. Mosquitoes, it's so annoying. I really want to shoot you all out. Larry cursed with his hands on his neck. Aichi threw him a bottle of mosquito repellent and joked. Be content. When I was running around in the jungle, I never saw you being so pretentious. Do you go to the bar every day and your body is hollowed out, right brothers? Ha ha ha, ha ha. The three suddenly laughed together. Just kidding, I'm super brave. Before Larry could finish speaking, the door opened. A scar-faced man walked out, and he just glanced at it. The four of them instantly became quiet, stood up and returned to their posts. HMPH, do what you are supposed to do you hear me? Received. Hall closed the door and nodded towards the two subordinates in the hall. The scars on his face were even more hideous under the light. He was about to step upstairs when the sound of a bottle falling suddenly came from outside. Ping pong, ping pong. These fools. Hall frowned, turned around and opened the door, opened his mouth and shouted, "You!" Woo! The sound stopped abruptly, and a black hole was pierced into the mouth, which made the throat sizzle, and the aroma of barbecue filled the air. Surprise. Puff. Rucker pulled the trigger without hesitation. The two people in the hall reacted, raised their guns and were about to shoot, and the muzzle of Lark moved slightly. Puff. Puff. They have already touched the trigger with their fingers, but unfortunately they are still a step behind. After half a month of recharging and recovering, Lark's physical fitness can't be said to be very strong, but his speed is really fast. Otherwise, Happy wouldn't be dazzled by him and lose in the end. Lark changed the magazine, walked slowly upstairs with the gun held in front of his chest. Only the last one left. Balance. 8.9 energy value. The black boots stepped on the stairs, and the red liquid slid down and pulled on the toes. When the light came down, Lark's shadow was drawn into a long strip. There was no sound above, and the villa suddenly fell into an eerie silence. Call, call, call. At the stairway, Lark stretched out his head and scanned quickly. His pupils shrank and he squatted down suddenly. Hey, da 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 da. Surprise, ha 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 ha. On the second floor, the last security guard fired wildly with a machine gun. The expensive solid wood floor was ruthlessly shredded, and sawdust mixed with gravel was flying all over the sky. Seeing that the enemy was suppressed, he stepped forward to pursue the victory, and his strong body pressed the bullets into a line. You fool, come out if you have the guts, da 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 da. Aren't you very fierce just now? Why are you so cowardly now, da da da. The security guard pushed forward. The stairwell was turned into ruins by the raging firepower. His face was flushed. Snapped, snapped, snapped. The bullet hit him and splashed mud behind him. Lark rushed out of the villa with his head in his arms and lay down behind the flower bed. Hoo hoo hoo. Lakla opened the mask and took a deep breath. Cold sweat came out one after another. The clothes were quickly soaked and stuck to the skin. So horrible. The location of the security station happened to be in a blind spot for surveillance, and Jarvis couldn't see it. He didn't expect that old guy Obadiah to actually have heavy firepower. This body armor he's wearing can't stop him, correct? Rucker groped his body with his hands, but he breathed a sigh of relief when he didn't find the hole in the gun. Fortunately, I ran fast, otherwise I would have fallen into a box. Before he could catch his breath, the siren sounded faintly in his ears, and Jarvis reminded. Sir, the police have already rushed this way and are expected to arrive in 4 minutes. You have to speed up. Manhattan is a wealthy area, and there are police officers patrolling 24 hours a day. After an accident, it is required to arrive at the scene within 5 minutes. The villa area is obviously a step up. Locke cursed angrily. The reason why he sneaked around was because he didn't want to be exposed, and now his plans have been disrupted. He quickly looked around and saw no security guards, and the gunfire stopped. Sir, he is squatting in the leftmost room on the second floor. You can throw thunder, Jarvis reminded at this time. Trust me again. Luck followed the flower bed to the left side of the villa, and sure enough he saw a window. He held 3 grenades in his right hand and a gun in his left hand. He pulled the trigger and quickly threw it out. Crack, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The glass shattered, and the grenade fell into the room in a beautiful arc in the air. Lark lowered his head and opened the panel. Boom, boom, boom. Energy value +1. Balance. 9.9 energy value. It's time to explode. Lark closed the panel and rushed into the villa. The most important thing now was to get rid of Obadiah, otherwise it would not be easy to catch him next time. Second floor, study. The door kicked open with a bang, and Lark glanced across the room, but did not see Obadiah's figure. Jarvis, find him. The light emitted from both sides of the helmet scans 360 degrees, and a prompt pops up on the screen after a while. Sir, there is a secret room behind the bookshelf on the left. You can see it when you open it. Hearing this, Locke sneered and walked to the bookshelf, pulling his hands hard. Hurrah! Boom! The utensil fell down, revealing the silver metal door embedded in the wall behind it, with the control panel on the right and the word Mars in the lower left corner. Soft jazz. There is a golf putting practice device on the ground. Obadiah holds the stick with both hands, bends his knees slightly, tests it twice and then waves gently. Snapped. The white ball rolled forward, jumped up the slope and entered the hole steadily. Great. Obadiah's beard moved slightly. He sat back in the boss chair and lit his cigar, and pressed the red button on the table. The screen in front of him flickered and then a picture appeared. A man in black took out a thread from his helmet, not knowing what he was doing. Obadiah sneered. He had spent a lot of money to customize this secret room. Except for the awkward camera angle, it had everything else including food, electricity, etc. The internet is even more isolated from the outside world. If you want to crack, go dreaming. But, looking at the monitoring, he seemed to think of something, pressed another button, and said, "Who are you? Who sent you here? The Continental Hotel, or the Roush subsidiary? Black Caesar, Night Demon, 0. The man in black kept moving, pulling out a few more lines and connecting them to the panel. Seeing that he was unmoved, Obadiah continued, "In today's killer world, there are not many people who can kill 9 of my men within 2 minutes. Being a killer with your skills is too humiliating. Are you interested in changing your job? The annual salary is $500 million US. To be honest, if it wasn't for Stark's surname now, Lark would have wanted to do it with him. An annual salary of $500 million is not low in the killer world, and it belongs to the top of the pyramid." Coupled with Obadiah's current status as the chairman of the Stark Group, it can be said that no one who wants to get rid of the quagmire of the killer organization can resist this temptation. Pity. Lark made a move. In the secret room, Obadiah thought the other party had agreed. With a proud expression on his face, he slapped the table and laughed. "Ha ha ha ha." A man's calm voice came from the small speaker. "I'm not interested in money." "Ha ha." Hiccup. The laughter stopped, and the opened mouth could not be closed for a long time. Obadiah's face turned pale. Why did Obadiah arrange for terrorists to attack Tony? To sum it up in one word, money. These words were like slapping him hard on the face, and even thought he was dirty. Humph. Obadiah slammed the cigar into the ashtray, crushed it repeatedly, and stared fixedly at the man in black on the screen, coldly said, "Don't eat a toast and eat a fine drink." Turning off the monitor, Obadiah picked up the phone and frowned. There was a text message showing that sending failed. The second team finished their vacation. If he dares to deal with terrorists, he naturally has more than just the people outside the villa. Now the whole of New York is in a special period, and he is sending people out just to be on the safe side. Only the one with no problem of identity was left on the bright side to stay by his side. Unexpectedly, the enemy took advantage of the loophole. After calming down, Obadiah held his mobile phone and fell into deep thought. Who is going to kill me? He thought of Justin Hammer for the first time, and then passed it ruthlessly. He was just a clown. Norman Osborn. Calculating his family disease, it seems that he is at this age. Not right. Obadiah stroked his beard and shook his head. At this time, he glanced at the photo on the table and mocked, "It can't be a loser like you anyway, ha 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 ha." Dee, alert alert, the system has been breached, the system has been breached. What? Obadiah shook his hands in fright and dropped his phone to the ground. He looked at the monitor in a panic and screamed, "How could this be? How could this be? This must be broken." He can taunt at will through the door, but you can't hit me anyway. There is no danger to your life. Now that the door is open, everything is different. He has to face the killing god outside alone. Gudong. Obadiah swallowed, and the elegance, arrogance, and domineering feeling just now disappeared. Shivering, he picked up the pistol and aimed it at the door. There was a dull sound of mechanical operation in the secret room. Caw caw caw. Hey. Obadiah pulled the trigger. Boom. Black shadows rushed into the house. Bang bang bang. The black shadow stepped on the ground and rose into the air. Bang bang bang. Climb for Grandpa. Boom. Obadiah hit the back of his head on a metal wall, vomited blood and fell into coma. A huge footprint on the chest. Snapped. Lark landed gracefully, his black helmet emitting a bloodthirsty light. He stood up. Hiss, it hurts. This old guy is so good at shooting. He was shot twice in a row. Lark rubbed his chest. Fortunately, the 2 shots were not fired at the same location, otherwise at least one rib would be broken tonight. The alarm bells were ringing louder and louder in his ears. He did not dare to delay and dragged Obadiah to the door. A bucket of oil came out of nowhere and filled the secret room. Boom. Let it burn. 10 minutes later the area outside the villa was filled with vehicles. Police, fire, and emergency services are all here. Not far away is a group of reporters shouldering the camera, eager to take pictures of the scene. Everyone looked like a lunatic, and he couldn't help but poke a microphone into the police officer's mouth in order to obtain first-hand information. So cool. Just as Tony disappeared, the interim chairman of the Stark Group was attacked. Judging by the raging fire, it is very likely that he must be dead. Is this someone secretly targeting the Stark Group? Business partner, opponent, terrorist organization, or the military? They have already foreseen that the stock of Stark Group will definitely plummet tomorrow. A few imaginative reporters have already imagined a shocking drama, and even thought of the title. Shock. The Stark Group is facing life and death crisis, and the behind-the-scenes mastermind of all this is. The Stark Group has no successors and is about to face bankruptcy. At this time, a man in a suit got out of the police car. Reporters swarmed over and kept flashing. Director K. Luo, has the person responsible for this attack been caught? Director Colo, do you have any clues? Director Colo. Chloe Jeff nodded with a fake smile. As the chief of the Manhattan Police Department, he couldn't run away at this time. He pressed his hands and waited for the crowd to quiet down, then said, "Everyone, please believe in the ability of the police. We will definitely catch the attacker and give you an explanation. No criminal will escape justice, and that's my promise to New York." Obviously no one believed this official statement. A reporter loudly said, "Director Keluo, do you think the person responsible for this attack was Hammer Industries or the Osborne Group?" Colo. The reporter was silent at first, and then his eyes lit up. Director Colo. Director Colo. Chloe was immediately submerged in the crowd. Fortunately, his subordinates were clever and immediately came up to block the reporters before they were able to escape. He walked to the front of the villa and said to a tall policeman, "Chief George, how is the situation?" George turned around. He was not surprised by the arrival of the director. The Stark Group's annual donation to the New York police system was as high as $70 million. Among them, the Manhattan Police Department gets the most profit. Now that something like this has happened, there will be a problem if he doesn't come. The fire has not been extinguished, and the situation inside is unclear for the time being. Colleagues outside are still searching. George pointed to his feet and said, "We found the body of Obadiah's security guard downstairs." He raised his eyebrows and continued. Each eyebrow shot. "Master. Trouble." Colo's heart sank. What George said proved that the other party was not simple, which meant that the probability of finding the murderer was greatly reduced. At the same time, the Stark Group will definitely not let it go. He may be the chief of the bureau. Colo inexplicably thought of the question asked by the reporter just now, took out a cigarette from his pocket, put one in his mouth, handed one to George, lit it and asked, "Will it be Hammer Industries or Osborne Group?" George silently smoked and did not answer. After a while, K. Luo sighed. "Oh, it would be great if someone took over this mess at this time." George silently smoked and did not answer. Jingle bell. Taking out the phone, Keluo raised his eyebrows, and he glanced at the corpse to connect. "Hey, Agent Coulson, let me guess you're calling about something big tonight, right?" Coulson said gently. "Haha, Director Cole is still so clever and clever. I really want to discuss something with you." "Haha, Detective Coulson has been praised. Tell me what I can do to help, and I will never refuse." George was slightly surprised when he heard this. There was silence on the other end of the phone, and then said, "I heard that the person who attacked the villa was a master, and it's very difficult to track down. It just so happens that I have a technical team idle here. Should Director K. Luo think about it? The implication is, I want to get involved." Kei Luo quickly analyzed the pros and cons in his mind. If you cooperate, you will not necessarily step down. If you do not cooperate, you will definitely step down. Old rules. Old rules. After hanging up the phone, Kei Luo gave a few instructions and turned to leave. Stark Manor. The alert is lifted. Pepper only found out after watching the news that Lark had gone to kill someone. Now he was spinning around anxiously, his high heels clicking loudly. Happy, why don't you stop, Luke? He has only woken up for a few days, what if he gets hurt again? And you, Jarvis, secretly made equipment for him without telling me. When Tony comes back, I'll let him take care of you. You too. Just as he was talking, the gate of the manor opened, and Jarvis reminded, Mr. Lark is back. Pepper hurried to the garage, Happy close behind. Snapped. As soon as Rucker stopped the car, he coughed from behind and Obadiah woke up. He squinted his eyes and looked around. The blood at the corner of his mouth had dried up and turned dark red. Ahem, what is this place? Luxury cars, mechanical equipment, robots, what a familiar place. Stark, then who are you? Obadiah said calmly, as if he had accepted his fate. Lark slowly took off his helmet, showing a bright smile. I am your dear nephew, Uncle Obadiah. Poof. Obadiah raised his hand and hesitated, and finally a mouthful of blood spurted out and fell into coma again. Locke touched his nose in embarrassment. Oh my God. Is that blood on you? At the top of the stairs, Pepper covered her mouth and exclaimed, her face turned pale. Blood. Lark looked down, moved a step away to reveal Obadiah who was lying on the car behind him, and said with a smile, these are the blood of him and his subordinates. I only went out wearing a body armor, and I didn't get shot. Fearing that she would not believe it, Locke called out Jarvis directly, is it Jarvis? Mr. is right. Although he was shot twice, they were both blocked by the body armor. Jarvis, you idiot, you haven't figured out what the point is. Sure enough, as soon as Pepper heard that she had been shot, her expression immediately became serious, with her hands on her hips. Seeing this, Locke quickly shot wild eyes at Happy behind her. Hurry up and help, stop watching. Let's look at deducting your salary. Happy understood in a second, and bumped away from Pepper. He walked to the motorcycle with his fat body and pretended that he couldn't lift Obadiah. Said, Luck lends a helping hand, carry this old guy to the next door and tie him up, you hurry up and change your clothes, your body stinks to death. You deserve to be smart after hanging out with Tony for so long. Lark gave a thumbs up quietly out of Pepper's sight. Pepper rolled her eyes, she was so familiar with this trick. After the two left, she looked at the blood on the ground, went to the corner and took out a tool to wipe it. During this period of time, they did all the cleaning work themselves. After tying up Obadiah and changing into clean clothes, Lark returned to the studio. Extraordinary life. Alienated Jaguar, Shadow Black Panther. Selling price. 10 energy points, head. Note, the current upper limit is 10 heads. Balance. 9.9 energy value. Time, 2 o'clock in the morning. Manhattan. 3 sprinklers worked together to put out the fire. George raised his wrist to look at the time and frowned. Why hasn't it arrived yet? Drip drip. Who are you? The scene is sealed off, no entry is allowed. George turned his head, just in time to see 5 identical black SUVs parked at the door, and a man with an extremely tall hairline waved at him from the first one. Coming. George stepped forward quickly. Why are you here now? You guys were always on time. I've been delayed by something. Coulson coughed, his leather shoes shook on the ground, and a few grains of sand fell. Let's not talk about that, what's the situation inside? Has the fire gone out? Come in first. There are reporters outside now. I guess you don't want to face them. George raised his hand to say hello to his companions, and the police officers at the door immediately stepped aside, and 5 black SUVs started to rush in one after another, with the wind blowing up sand and dust. Coulson coughed again, covering his nose with his hand and walking towards the villa beside George. 3 sprinkler trucks poured water on top of the fire source. It can be seen with the naked eye that the outer fire has been put out. There are still sporadic fire spots inside the second floor. According to this progress, the progress is fast. Coulson let go of his hand and took a deep breath. The abundant water vapor poured into his throat, and he swallowed subconsciously. This action happened to be seen by George on the side. Combined with the owner of the villa and the sand under his feet, he could easily figure out that Coulson was delayed by something. No wonder I didn't even get the documents and was stopped at the door. Let me give you an overview of the situation first. Coulson nodded. Currently, most of New York Shield's energy is in the desert. The specific circumstances of the attack and fire on Obaday's residence are indeed unclear. The phone call with Director K. Luo just now was half a gamble, George said as he walked. At 12:30 in the morning, the Manhattan Patrol Police received a call saying that there was a fierce exchange of fire in the villa area. Coulson called out a number. 4 minutes. When the police arrived, a fire had already broken out on the second floor and quickly spread to the entire villa. Several bodies were lying on the ground, and no trace of the suspect was found. After calling the fire alarm and support, the reporter rushed over immediately after receiving the news. This is the whole process of the case. Coulson pondered for a moment after listening, then nodded in the direction of the SUV. Bang! The car door opened and several black suits came down. Some of them walked to the corpse, and some began to check around the villa. The division of labor and cooperation showed a professional attitude. These were routine items, and George, confident in his fellow police officers, focused on one of the cars. Several technicians were sitting in front of the computer, with pictures constantly flashing on the screen. They were hacking, repairing, and analyzing the surrounding surveillance. This was the core of Colo's decision to cooperate. According to normal procedures, the Manhattan branch would not be able to obtain surveillance around the villa or even this block within 48 hours. Stark Industries, his boss, and the media will not give him this time, so he can only gamble. There was a sudden silence in the room. The crackling of the keyboard echoed in the ears. Coulson loosened his tie from time to time, and George silently smoked a cigarette. A yell brought them back to reality. The fire is out. George dropped Shongyan, and Coulson looked up. They looked at each other and walked towards the villa. The teams responsible for collecting evidence on both sides were a step faster and had now entered the hall. As soon as he stepped through the door, a report was handed to Coulson. According to the agreement with Director Colo, he was placed in the middle and watched with George. Viper Squad, all death. Hall Manning, a former Marine Corps member, won the Medal of Honor, Navy Cross, and 1 Silver Star. After retiring 3 years ago, he established the Poisonous Viper mercenary team and was hired by Obadiah 2 years ago. The cause of death was a gunshot wound to the throat and an explosion in the head. Richard Moran, a slap in the face. Bill Farrell, shot in the heart. Cobra Squad, on vacation. Rattlesnake Squad, on vacation. As the reports passed one by one, Coulson's face became more serious. This group of teams is very strong, and they are not weaker than his group of people in terms of combat effectiveness. According to George, from the time the shots were fired to the arrival of the police officers on patrol, it took the attackers at most 4 minutes to finish them off. This point, in a frontal battle, without the use of special equipment. He can't do it. Continue to scroll down, and the report is marked in large characters at the end. The attacker is suspected to be one person. Top killer. This idea popped up in the minds of both of them at the same time. At this time, Coulson understood what Fury meant by targeting the Stark group on the phone. The visitor is not good. Closing the file, Coulson asked beside him, "How are you doing? What do you think?" George came up with a ghostly sentence, "Hanmo Industry or Osborne Group." He didn't believe this himself, and touched his nose in embarrassment. Just as Coulson was about to speak, a shout came from upstairs, "Team leader, there is a major discovery." Kick, kick, stare, kick. In front of the secret room, the pale-faced man in the suit handed over the bag. Inside was a thumb-sized piece with black and curled edges. "Team leader, this is a photo found under a blood-stained ashtray, and the rest was burned by fire." He added, "It is a man's head." Man, the two were shocked. This might become a breakthrough tonight. Coulson quickly snatched it, and George moved to the side again. Through the bag, the blood and the smoke made the photo a bit blurry. Coulson took out the photo and held it under the light, and finally saw it clearly this time. A blonde man. Who is this? George tilted his head. Coulson's pupils shrank. Grab the photo. When he turned around, his smile faded and he said coldly, "Chief George Stacy, your mission is over." We, FB1, have full authority to take over this case. We will take your people out of this place. No items are allowed to be taken away. There is no trace of emotion between the words, as if facing a stranger. This is S.H.I.E.L.D. The change was too fast, and George couldn't react for a while, pointing at him. You. Coulson still didn't say a word, his cold eyes fixed on him, and the men in black around him stopped moving, their hands on their waists flickered. A strange atmosphere filled the air, and the second floor fell into silence for an instant. There were conversations downstairs, shouts from the crowd outside the window, and police sirens. Team leader, monitoring and analysis. At this time, Paco ran up the stairs, looked up and saw the scene above, swallowed and whispered. It's over. After the words fell, time seemed to be pressed again. George put down his hand, panting sounded, and the man in black left his waist. George stared at Coulson without anger, without disappointment, without emotion. All police officers, withdraw. Looking at the police cars in the distance, Coulson sighed in his heart. S.H.I.E.L.D. will not have any convenience in Manhattan in the future. Coulson took out his cell phone from his pocket, turned to the director's phone number and dialed. Coulson, how's the situation over there? Boss, I found a picture of Rucker Stark in the Obade chamber. He's awake. There was a ringing sound on the other end of the phone, and Fury said hurriedly, Mother FXXKER, is it really Lark Stark? Are you sure you read that correctly? I'm sure. Coulson glanced at the photo and continued, I suspect there is another reason for Tony's disappearance. I'm applying for a thorough investigation of Obade. Fury was silent for a few seconds, and his urgent tone turned cold. Check all Tony, Obadiah, and the killer for me. From now on, New York S.H.I.E.L.D. is all at your disposal. Do you understand? Listed as a Level 5 incident. In addition, after dawn, go to the manor to check on Lark's situation. We can own a lot of shares in the Stark Group. Coulson said seriously. Understood. The situation was urgent just now, the relationship with the Manhattan Police Department. I understand. You did nothing wrong in this matter. I will find a way over there. Doo-doo. Destined to have no sleep tonight. My poor hairline. Coulson rubbed his swollen head, logged into the internal network, and began to issue tasks. Communication sounds rang out from time to time. Time, 3 o'clock in the morning. The technical analysis team found traces left by the attackers in the fence and groves. The wheel marks confirmed that the attackers succeeded and rode a motorcycle towards the Bronx. The surveillance has been modified and the assailant's face has not been photographed. Ballistic analysis cannot find the source of the gun. Team leader, this is all the information collected so far. The man in black in the office was reporting the clues he found last night. When there was a knock on the door, everyone looked at Coulson. Bang bang bang. Enter. Team leader, I've bought the things you want. Miller pushed open the door and walked in, carrying a basket of flowers in his hand. Well, I got it. Coulson put down the report, and said to the man in black, I already know the situation, and then you will focus on Obade, and let me know as soon as you have any news. The meeting is adjourned. After all, Coulson walked towards the door first, looked at his watch and told Miller, who was guarding the door, go and call Karen and the others, and tell them to move faster, that lady doesn't like it. People who are late. Time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Stark Manor. Pepper rides on a counterbalanced body followed by a small bucket truck. The old-fashioned silver-white metal gate looks old and tacky, which doesn't match the style here at all. That's it. Pepper stopped and took out a watering can from the cart, and sprayed a few drops of dark red on the ground. Puff puff. Within a moment, the milky white liquid gradually turned red. When the mop was swept, the spot was clean, with no trace of blood anywhere. Stopping and going, it took half an hour to finally clean up the traces on the road. After returning to the villa and putting down his tools, Happy walked in from the outside sweating profusely and sat down on the chair. He is in charge of inspecting devices in the forest. The manor covers an area of 2 kilometers. It's not good for the house to be too big. Throwing a towel over, Pepper pointed at his waist and snickered, Happy, Tony will be surprised to see you when he comes back. Happy blinked blankly. What's wrong with me? His little heart was still beating, sweat was dripping out, and the black t-shirt was stuck to his body. Pepper made various gestures with his hands, and Happy suddenly understood. He stood up confidently, no longer sweating, no longer breathing, and even raised his voice a few times when he spoke. Haha, I let you find out. I thought it was a surprise for you. The boss has been complaining about me being too fat. I don't look like a bodyguard at all. Now, he said, making a bicep move very coquettishly, please call me Ha Schwarzenegger Pie. Can you imagine a person with a chubby face, round hands, and a bulging stomach who thinks he is very strong? So funny. Haha, cuckoo cuckoo. Pepper covered her mouth, trying not to make a sound, her shoulders shaking. Happy's hands froze in midair. It's over, my first life's fame is completely ruined. If the boss finds out, he will definitely laugh at me for a year. At this moment, Happy wants to slap himself in the mouth. Let you pretend, now he is overturned. No, I have to hurry. Happy rolled his eyes. Obadiah seems to be awake, I'll get him something to eat, don't starve to death. After speaking, he trotted away. The back view is so desolate and lifeless. Ha 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 ha. After they left, Pepper finally didn't have to hold it back any longer and laughed. Next door. Boom. I'm fine, the shelf is down. Ha ha ha. Tears made me laugh. When did Happy become so funny? Pepper said while leaning on the wall. It took a full 2 minutes for Pepper to recover, wiped away her tears, and asked, Jarvis, what time is it now? 7:40 in the morning. There are still 1 minute before the FB20 appointment time, you have to speed up. At this time, Harpy popped his head out of the corner and added, Luck ordered last night not to disturb him before 10 o'clock, and you can just get rid of the FB1 group. Pepper made an okay gesture. Got it, I'm the best at this. Last night, Obadiah notified her on the phone that she was on leave, and the administrative order had not been formally issued. Strictly speaking, she is still the secretary of the chairman. It was normal for law enforcement to come to her with questions. I can only find her. 8 points. Meeting room. Pepper changed into business attire, and Happy also took off his t-shirt, black suit and leather shoes. In front of him was a huge floor-to-ceiling window, facing the gate of the manor. ZZ. Ms. Pepper, I am the FB1 senior agent who made the appointment with you, Rafe Hilton. Coulson put his ID under the camera and said gently. Come directly to the reception room, Agent Ralph Hilton. The camera clicked and a voice came. The silver-white metal door shrinks to both sides to reveal the passage, and a black guide car is parked at the door. The car started, and Coulson kept looking around. This was his first visit to this manor, and he had only seen it in reports before. It's really big, the road leading to the villa alone is hundreds of meters long, and it's worthy of the surname Stark. Where is the machine gun tower mentioned in the blueprint? Oh, that black pillar should be there. It's well hidden. How is the soil on the ground new? Coulson subconsciously turned his head to look to the other side, but unfortunately he had already arrived at the villa at this time, and he didn't see anything. Forget it, let's get down to business first. Coulson trimmed his hair, trying to make himself look kinder. Good morning, Ms. Pepper, I'm really bothering you this time. I came here to ask about Mr. Obadiah's recent situation. Coulson asked politely, sitting upright. There is a flower basket on the table. Pepper sat across from her. Her eyes were reddish, which was in line with the sudden blow. She choked up and said. Since Tony disappeared, fortunately Mr. Obadiah took over the group, so the company didn't have any problems. After all, I'm just a little secretary, you're right. After speaking, he gave Coulson a slightly sad look. Coulson smiled awkwardly and continued. As far as I know, on the day Tony disappeared, he immediately took over the company. The whole process only took 3 hours. Isn't it a bit fast? Of course, I'm just a bitter low-level employee. I don't know much about the operation of a large company like yours. I hope Ms. Pepper can help me clear up my doubts. Regarding Obadiah, there are actually very few things that can be asked. If Tony was attacked by him, it is obvious that he is an old fox. He does not think Pepper the vase can reveal his true colors. Asking this question is just paving the way for the next goal. I believe you have learned a lot about Tony's character through the newspapers. If Mr. Obadiah hadn't been the vice chairman these years, Stark Group's stock would have been even worse than it is now. The implication, Obadiah, good man. After asking a few more general questions and getting similar answers, Coulson knew it was impossible to get clues from Pepper. He glanced around, leaned forward and said mysteriously, I heard that Lark Stark woke up some time ago, is it true? Pepper paused, his eyes looked back and forth on Coulson, and he said doubtfully. We haven't announced this matter to the outside world. How did you know? Could it be that you have installed surveillance in the manor? Pepper stood up and scolded angrily. You will always only invade the privacy of citizens, and there is nothing you can do about criminals. This is the end of today's conversation, and Happy sees off. After saying that, Pepper left the conference room without giving Coulson a chance to stay. The door hit the wall with a bang. Happy stepped forward, looking at the group of black suits with unfriendly eyes. HMPH. It's time to go, FB1 Senior Agent Ralph Hilton, Mr. When he said the name, he took off a long ending sound, which was full of sarcasm. Before Lark entered the studio yesterday, he put his arms around his shoulders and told him, Happy, someone from FB1 will definitely come to ask about the situation tomorrow. Then you and Pepper will act casually. Whenever you have a chance, you will give me a hard time. Humiliation, if you can let them beat you, I will not only seal you as Stark Group Security Director afterwards, but also give you this number. Coulson was stunned for a moment. Why is this harpy's personality completely different from the information? So annoying. And the secretary, with such poor acting skills, I really thought I couldn't see it. It was obvious that Luke didn't want to see us and took the opportunity to drive people away. Coulson faintly felt that something was wrong with this manor, but he couldn't remember it for a while, so he could only sigh and turn away. FB1, garbage. The car started and slowly left the manor. Time, 8:30. They're gone. Pepper disappeared, standing next to Happy. The makeup is exquisite, the mood is stable, and the sad look just now is nowhere to be seen. Ah, there is still a press conference in the afternoon, let's go too. The two turned and left. Squeak. A series of brake sounds came from behind. 3 SUVs made a sharp turn on the road and headed towards the villa with great momentum. Jarvis, what's going on? Pepper frowned. A virtual map appeared in the air. Signal detected, intrusion in progress. DD, signal hangs up, intrusion failed. Pepper, I suggest waking up Mr. Lark. Jarvis has many functions that only Locke has access to. The person is not good. The faces of the two were solemn, and Pepper couldn't help clenching his fists, as if returning to the time when Obadiah called yesterday. Just as Happy was about to open the door, Pepper said abruptly, leave this to me, and you go call Lark. Yeah, her footsteps stopped. Happy looked back at her, can you do it? Go, hold on. Without saying much, Happy opened the door and ran towards the studio. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The car stopped, and 6 men in black ran aggressively towards the villa. The sound of crackling footsteps was like stepping on drums, which was disturbing. You can do it. Believe in yourself, Pepper. Whoever asked you to come back, get out and Jarvis informs the police. Pepper blocked the door and yelled. Coulson stopped. Stand in front of Pepper. The gentle smile just now was gone, exposing a businesslike posture. Ms. Pepper Potts, I received a piece of information. Mr. Obadiah called you at 6 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Then the manor turned on the alert mode. His villa was attacked in the middle of the night. I suspect that you were involved in the attack. This case is related, please come with us. Coulson plays a recording. The content was that Obadiah gave her a holiday. That's it. Hey, you got kicked in the head by a donkey. Agent Ralph Hilton, what does this recording prove? Has my little secretary been fired? Funny. Also, seeing that you are empty-handed and dare to arrest people without an arrest warrant, I really think my Stark Group's legal team is a vegetarian. Coulson didn't even bat an eyelid. He slowly took off his FB1 ID, took out another copy from his pocket and hung it up. Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Agency, Senior Agent Phil Coulson, we are a special department and do not need an arrest warrant. Take away. With a big wave of his hand, 2 men in black stepped forward to support Pepper and dragged him to the car, without any sympathy. Let me go, you fools. I must sue you for violent law enforcement. Wait until Tony comes back. Naturally, Jarvis cannot sit idly by. As an intelligent AI, it is different from those rigid robots. Mr. Agent, please stop your behavior immediately, otherwise I will fire immediately. Several black pillars stretched out around the villa, and the infrared beams fell on all the men in black. Hey, Coulson sneered and pressed the button in his hand. The SUV vibrated, and an invisible wave spread. When the lights went out, the beams disappeared, and the machine guns dropped their heads. Jarvis was forced to go offline. Rubbish. Coulson put away the button and was about to leave when a roar resounded through the manor. Roar. Bang. 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 My head. What happened? The glass burst, and everyone covered their heads and screamed. Pepper knocked over the crowd with perseverance and hid in the corner. Just as she squatted down, a black figure sprang out from the villa, jumping back and forth among the men in black. The blood came on stage stepping on and howling, and she didn't feel scared at all. Ah, what kind of monster is this? Bang bang bang. Shoot quickly. My leg. Save. Woo woo. After 5 seconds, the black shadow stopped. It walked in front of Pepper with graceful steps, looked at her with big smart eyes, and raised its head and let out a cry. Roar. Good job Abao, well done. Locke stepped on the broken glass and rubbed Abao's head. It's okay, I'm late. Pepper shook her head, strangely calm. The big eyes put on Abao's body without concealing his love, and he was a little scared when he reached out to touch him. Lark smiled, noticing her embarrassment, patted Abao on the head, turned and walked towards the pile of corpses. Abao blinked, his round head actively arched against Pepper's chest, and then lay on her lap. Pepper smiled. Only cute pets and food can heal people's hearts. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The black leather shoes bypassed the blood and broken limbs, and the glass shards reflected Luck's uncertain figure. Snapped. Locke squatted down and patted one of the faces. Stop pretending, you're not dead yet. No movement. Oh, why don't you always listen when you speak well? Lark shook his head in disappointment. His eyes moved down, and locked on the deep invisible claw marks on his chest. Reach out. Ah, ah, ah. Coulson couldn't hold it back in the end, and yelled out, his eyes fixed on Lark. You actually stood up. Rucker frowned. I don't like the look in your eyes. The fingers scratched back and forth in the claw marks, as if grinding a kitchen knife. Coulson's face was flushed, his body began to convulse, and his nails almost tore through his skin. Just when he was about to faint, Lark stopped his movements, and Coulson suddenly collapsed on the ground and took a big breath. Ha. 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 That's right. A prisoner should look like a prisoner. His eyes are so fierce. What if he scares the children? Luck said calmly. His eyes looked back and forth on him. Original. Agents hurt too. Dark basement. Obadiah woke up in a daze, smelling the pungent smell of blood in the air, nauseating his stomach acid, followed by a sharp pain in his head. Am I dead? This is where, hell. His eyelids moved slightly, and 2 voices came from his ears. He resisted the desire to open his eyes. First listen to what hell is like. Dead. I saw so much blood on his chest. It should be soon. I didn't expect Abao to be so powerful. One paw almost took his heart out. It turns out I'm not dead yet, which is great. Obadiah was overjoyed and was about to open his eyes immediately, but the next words made his heart drop to the bottom again. What are you looking for? Click. Can I go back alive? Obadiah's drooping face was shaking and he was on the verge of crying. He has dealt with businessmen, politicians, soldiers, killers, and terrorists, but he has never seen cannibals. What's more, he was the one who was about to be eaten. Unless they're full. That's right, it must be daylight now, and Team B must be preparing to rescue me. Support Obadiah, you still have so much money, you can definitely go back alive. Hope rekindled in his heart, he quietly narrowed his eyes. Boom. Obadiah's body trembled and he closed his eyes again. Didn't see me, didn't see me, didn't see me. I finished eating so quickly. What should I do if I'm only 3% full? Papa, look, his body seems to be shaking. Is he awake? It should be. Let's go and have a look. Da da. Da da. Dong dong. The sound of death's footsteps echoed in his ears, and Obadiah's heart began beating involuntarily. He never thought that he would die in this way. Endless fear filled the air, Obadiah's body trembled, and he muttered. Don't eat me, don't eat me. Clap clap. Hey, wake up. Ah, don't eat me. My meat is not tasty at all, I have a lot of money. I can give you money. Obadiah was like a frightened rabbit, shaking his body wildly. Even so, he still closed his eyes, trying to deceive himself. After all, when I was a child, as long as I got under the bed, no monsters and monsters could hurt me. What's going on? Luke glanced at Happy and found that he was also puzzled. What's wrong with this old guy? Lark stretched out his hand. Snapped. What's the name of the ghost? Take a good look at who I am. Hiss. Happy gasped. The palm print on Obaday's right cheek was clearly visible and showed signs of swelling. The casting was interrupted, and Obadiah finally opened his eyes. The two outlines gradually became clear. It's two men, one fat and one thin. So familiar. Ah, luck. Boom. Lark blew on his fist. Old guy. Obadiah passed out gorgeously again. Well, didn't we ask him for the contact information of the terrorists? Happy rubbed his nose and felt a little pain for no reason. It's okay, I'll wake him up later. I've been hungry all night. Is it easy for me to eat something? Locke waved his fist and looked at Happy. Are you right? Happy's mouth twitched and he immediately transformed into a nodding machine. Yes, 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 yes. Count you acquainted. Have a meal. With a basin of water, poor Obadiah woke up again. This time he learned the lesson and huddled in the corner without struggling or whining. He wasn't even the slightest bit surprised that a creature like a leopard appeared in the basement. This state is commonly known as numb. If you want to ask anything, just ask. Locke lowered his fist with regret on his face, gave Pepper a look, and signaled you to go. Pepper nodded, took out his tablet and started asking, while Jarvis collaborated simultaneously. Coulson forcibly cut off the power of the villa, and it was fine after restarting. What are the contact details of the terrorists? How often do you contact me? Is there a password? How many times have you traded with them over the years? Where is your ledger hidden? No matter what I asked, Obadiah answered them all, and he seemed to know everything he knew. At this time, Pepper asked the last question. How much equity in the company do you hold in total? Looking back and forth on Locke, he said timidly, 107%. So little, so little. Lark pushed Happy away, held his collar and said eagerly. Didn't Howard give you percent back then? Did you sell it? Who did you sell it to? This number is really different from what Luck expected. Adding his 10% and Tony's 15%, the total is only 32%. It's like a slap in the face for the next plan. He had to ask clearly. Lark was anxious, and the strength in his hands increased unconsciously. It became more and more difficult for Obadiah to breathe when he was pressed against his throat, and his face turned red. His hands were tied, and he couldn't even make a sound. Fortunately, Pepper reached out to save him in time, otherwise he, who had just been the chairman for 3 days, would have died in this basement. Cough cough, cough cough. You, a person who has been lying on the bed for more than 10 years, why are you so strong? Wondering. Dream on you. Lark rolled his eyes. He didn't even tell Happy and Pepper this answer. Of course, neither of them asked. The person who was abandoned by countless medical masters now wakes up strangely. There is no special reason, and it is impossible to think about it. Family, no need to explain so much. Stop beeping and explain to whom you sold it quickly. All the shares are in your name and they are still scattered. Obadiah thought about it and said, a few years ago, I ran into some problems. The economy couldn't turn around. Fortunately, a few directors who had a good relationship with me were willing to help. I sold % of the shares to them at a high price. You know, they were willing to buy at 5% higher than the market price. At that time, I was so happy that I was crazy. I didn't expect such fools to exist. Quote. He was a little proud when he said this, and his beard twitched. A fool indeed. The three of them looked at him with pity in their eyes. I don't even know that I was jumped by a fairy, and I am still complacent. Locke frowned into a Sichuan character. Quickly think about countermeasures in my heart. Jarvis, combined with Tony's private account and Obaday's, how much money can be used? Sir, a total of $30 billion US. That's all. Lark's frown deepened. Compared with the Stark Group's market value of $100 billion United States dollars, it is indeed too small. To achieve his goal, at least billion in cash is needed. Is there any way for me to earn $70 billion US in a week, and it has to be the legal one? Luck is running around in the basement in a hurry. Robbery. No, it's too slow. Rob a bank. Forget it, I don't have any money in the bank yet. What else can T-Girl do? Do you want me to speculate in stocks? Wait. Yes, I can trade in stocks. How did I forget this? What an elm head. Locke slapped himself under the surprised eyes of everyone. Thinking of what he was about to do, he immediately pulled Pepper aside and began to discuss. So. How about moving the afternoon press conference to noon? Today is Saturday, so there is plenty of time for fermentation. In addition, the company also has several small newspapers, which can just be involved. Okay, I'll do as you say. Pepper is indeed a strong businesswoman. When Lark came up with a vague idea, she not only quickly came up with a plan, but also took it to the next level. At the end of the exchange, Pepper left the basement first. She had a lot of work to arrange, and before leaving, she left Abao with a look of reluctance. No woman can resist the temptation of a big cat. Shadow Panther, king of the shadows. The jaguar, mutated by unknown influences, will become a nightmare for countless lives when night falls. Note: bonuses can be obtained on full moon nights. The introduction is still quite brief, but Lark already has a preliminary understanding of its strength, and the corpse upstairs is evidence of it. Locke beckoned, and Abao immediately came over, blinking his big bright eyes, and put his head under Locke's palm. The black fur was smooth and shiny, and felt better than any cat he had petted before. Locke took the opportunity to open the panel, and the two redemption interfaces were completely different. Own skill, animal summoning. Summoned animal, Shadow Panther, quantity 1. Skill exchange list, primary energy detector, price, 20 energy value. Balance, 4 energy value. Remarks: supernatural energy is the best. After 2 exchanges, his physical fitness was strengthened again, and his charging efficiency was greatly increased. Correspondingly, the current intensity of the villa can no longer be charged. He either needs to switch to a stronger current, or look for supernatural energy. Tony likes to toss with machinery. The electricity in the villa is already at the industrial level, and if it goes up. Factory reactor, from the heart, is a virtue. The detector showed up at just the right time. It's a pity, I'm still so poor. Lark skillfully clicked on the ordinary life exchange list. It's time for Tony to come back. Everyone knows that it takes 3 steps to stuff an elephant into a refrigerator: open the refrigerator, enlarge the image, and close the refrigerator. In the same way, the first step in rescue is naturally to find Tony. Finding someone in the vast desert is tantamount to finding a needle in a haystack, and he can only do his best. Happy. I'm going to test you. When looking for someone in the desert, which animal is the fastest? Luck's knowledge of animals was limited to cats and dogs. Faced with a huge list of animals, he really didn't know who to exchange for. The so-called one person counts the short, 2 people count the long. Ask Happy, maybe there will be unexpected gains. Happy raised his head with a swish, looked at Lark with burning eyes, his mouth turned, and he was a little speechless with excitement. He has been with Tony for several years, and the relationship is naturally good. After a moment, seeing that Lark was not joking, Happy said thoughtfully, "What about wolves? I heard that their sense of smell is better than that of dogs, and their endurance is better. Or eagles, too. I remember in the animal world it is said that they can clearly see prey on the ground at a height of several thousand meters." Eagle, I didn't expect you to be quite knowledgeable. Looking at Happy's chubby face for a moment, Lark said in surprise, "That's it. Come on, let's go upstairs." The two left, and Obadiah's roar echoed through the basement. "Hey, don't leave. I haven't eaten yet. Are you going to treat me, a 70-year-old man, like this?" Hey. The villa was busy at the moment, and people from Stark's security department were responsible for cleaning up the bodies on the ground. The construction workers looked intently and hurriedly installed the damaged glass without showing any curiosity during the whole process. There were too many people, so Locke avoided his sight and walked into the woods. With a thought, 3 vultures appeared in front of him. The dark brown feathers are dry and rough, and coupled with the bald head, it is extremely ugly. There was a faint rancid smell in the air, and Lark took a half step back in disgust. Bao, who has a more sensitive sense of smell, has already jumped to a tree a few meters away and squatted down. The summoned animals will have a spiritual connection. Lark gave a simple instruction, and then asked Happy to find a way to fly them to Afghanistan today and leave. He doesn't plan to contact terrorists. They are a group of real desperados. Who knows whether the other party will be surprised, happy, or directly broadcast live to inform the whole world. For the sake of Tony's life, it's better to do it by yourself. He asked Jarvis to draw out a general area. Coupled with the flying speed of the Vulture, there should be a result in 3 to 5 days. Bar. Stark Industries. Since the news of the press conference was sent out, reporters have come continuously, and the exhibition hall has been blocked. If you take a step forward, you can only huddle in the corner. There is no place to set up the camera. This is the first time that Stark Industries has released information since Tony disappeared. Many reporters scratched their heads anxiously, and the communication was endless. Do you think the news of Tony's death will be announced? The military has been looking for it for so long, but there has been no news. It's possible. I heard from a friend in the morning that Hanmo Industry is already seeking orders from the military. TCH, your news is outdated a long time ago. Let me tell you that there was a fire in Obaday's villa last night. Really, this is not targeted by someone. Wow. Hey, don't talk about Tony's secretary showing up. Hey, who is that man in the wheelchair? Everyone suppressed their curiosity and became quiet, and the sound of a pin drop could be heard in the Nuo University venue. In order to promote the plan smoothly, Lark not only dressed in formal attire today, but also invited a top Hollywood hairstylist to carefully design the hairstyle on his head. It is stable and masculine at the same time. As for the result, you can tell by the glowing eyes of the female reporter in the stands. Lark's heartbeat accelerated slightly. He was a little nervous when facing so many people for the first time. He scanned the crowd, paused at several corners, and said, "Everyone should be very puzzled. Why is it not Secretary Pepper who spoke, but me, a waste in a wheelchair, haha." Locke laughed at himself, but unfortunately, no one took up the fight, only a few elderly people thoughtful. Journalists are no good this year. Lark complained in his heart and dropped a bombshell. My name is Lark Stark, the second son of Howard, and Tony's younger brother. Mr. Lark, is what you said true? Mr. Luck, you know Chairman Obadiah. Lark looked at them with a half smile but not a smile. Seeing no answer, several reporters turned to Pepper, who had not said a word since taking the stage. Ms. Pepper, do you really mean this? Secretary Pepper, what about Mr. Opadry, why didn't he attend the press conference? Chairman Opadry. Seeing that the atmosphere was almost rendered, Locke interrupted. He didn't waste time on his life experience, and went straight to the point. I believe everyone has seen the news that Tony was attacked in Afghanistan some time ago. I only have one point to explain. Pausing for a moment, he stretched out his fingers and solemnly said, "The Stark Group must, definitely, and firmly believes that Chairman Tony will return safely. The Stark Group will mobilize all forces to find him. The Stark Group will never give up on every employee. Including everyone here. I swear in the name of Stark." Lark sincerely looked at every employee present. Although the lines were a bit awkward and not even at the level that a big group should have, the puffed-up chests in the audience proved that the effect was still there. Half an hour later, with a goodbye, the press conference finally came to an end, and Locke rubbed his stiff face. This feeling was more tiring than killing someone. There were Stark employees around, and Pepper pushed him away. When he turned around, Lark turned back again, and happened to be confronted by several people in black suits. The corner of his mouth twitched. Chapter 11. After the news was released, as expected, the stock started to rise again, and in the past 2 days, my own tabloid office has exposed a few articles from time to time. Regarding the recovery of Lark's body, the successors of Stark Industries, and other topics, the stock price is only a hair away from before Tony's disappearance. The plan is going smoothly, so it is natural to have a good meal. Night. The Stark Manor is brightly lit, and there is a long table in the yard full of ingredients, a huge barbecue grill next to it, and enough good wine in the ice bucket. Luck is holding a huge pair of tongs, the steak is flipping and sizzling with oil, the golden grilled lobster is mouth-watering, and the sea breeze blows the fragrance 10 miles away. Ha 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 ha, here comes the steak. Lark brought the roasted meat to the table and distributed it to everyone's plate in turn. It was the last person's turn and 4 plates were placed. What happened to lying around for so many years, enjoying the enjoyment? He stretched out his hand and said, "Happy, serve the wine." Okay, Happy shouted in response, pulling out 3 bottles from the barrel and slamming them on the table, causing ice shards to splash everywhere. Good wine with good food. Happy was in charge of sobering up. Lark set the tableware, looked around and asked, "Where are Pepper and Abau? Why didn't I see them? Maybe by the sea. By the way, Lark, I think Abau can swim very fast. Don't all leopards live in the jungle?" Locke was at a loss for words, touching the blind spot of his knowledge. Fortunately, the master has artificial intelligence, and he raised his head. "It's time for you to play, Jarvis, and introduce the Jaguar to our Stark security director, Mr. Happy." After the press conference, Lark promoted Happy to an official position, and now he is at the pinnacle of his life in addition to holding several positions. "Okay, sir." A beam of light flashes, and a virtual projection appears, the Jaguar aka the Jaguar. The manor is located on the tip of the island, and the vast sea is around the back of the villa. In the cold moonlight, a man and a leopard are playing on the beach. The beige ball was thrown high. Pepper folded his hands together, aiming at the timing and lightly hit the ball, and the ball flew out. "Abau, it's your turn." The black hair was difficult to detect at night, and Luck followed the position where the ball fell and saw a pair of big, bright eyes, shining with light. "It's time to eat." Luck put his hands in front of his mouth and shouted. Abau turned his head subconsciously, and the ball hit it on the head with a bang. The little guy let out an "ow," and looked at him with 2 big eyes in confusion. "Ow." Locke looked up at the sky. "Well, the moon is really round tonight." Pepper smiled, ran over and hugged Abau's big head, rubbed it hard a few times, and said boldly, "Go, my sister will take you to dinner tonight, the best steak in the world. Let's see who gets there first." After speaking, he kicked the ball away, and the 2 people rushed out at the same time. Naturally, she couldn't outrun Abau, and was left behind as soon as she got off the plane. "Hey, what is that?" Locke was still admiring the moon when he suddenly noticed something flying in the sky. It was only when he got closer that he saw that it was a ball, and his body almost fell on his head. There are not so many rules for a simple family dinner. After everyone sat down, they greeted each other and started their own business. Abau squatted on his exclusive seat, and there was a table full of barbecue in front of him. Fortunately, Locke now has the word Stark in his surname, otherwise he really couldn't afford to support Abau, a big eater, and his brothers and sisters. Thinking about it this way, it seems to be profitable. Barbecue and fine wine. Locke was temporarily defeated by this invincible combination, and was willing to immerse himself in it, unable to extricate himself. "Please let me suffer alone." Pepper has a small appetite. After eating a little, she put down the knife and fork, picked up a piece of fruit, took a bite and said, "Happy, teach me boxing." "Ah." The 2 nodded at the same time without asking why. Accidents can best exercise people's mind. Harpy has worked with her for many years, and naturally noticed the change in her mentality. As a friend, all he can do is try his best. But, he wiped the stain from the corner of his mouth. Practicing boxing can at most give you the power to fight back against the little gangsters. If you want to prevent things like this from happening again in the morning, you can only ask Lark if there is a way. After saying that, he nuzzled towards Abau. "Abau. Eat it, I didn't mention you." Pepper rubbed its head and looked at Lark. As expected of Harpy, who has been in the security circle all year round, he hits the nail on the head. Sports, such as boxing, taekwondo, and martial arts are all just showy, especially in the face of firearms. The times have changed. Putting aside all the uncontrollable factors, Lark knew that the only sure way to become stronger at present was the battle armor. As long as you put it on, ordinary people can kill everyone without fear of any risks, the early stage. As long as Tony. By the way, did the vultures get transported to Afghanistan? Locke closed his eyes, and seemed to see the shadowy sand dunes in the haze, and a full moon in the sky. Afghanistan is 8 hours ahead of the United States, and it's still dark. Let Happy teach you how to box and train your body first. After Tony comes back after a while, I'll think of a way. Afraid that she might not believe it after speaking, he pointed at Abau who was busy cooking. Very rare. ... Abau raised his head in a daze. "What's wrong? I didn't say anything about you. I didn't say anything about you. I didn't say anything about you. Sir, We have a visitor. The last sentence was said by Jarvis. The table fell silent for a moment, and everyone put down their tableware at the same time. Lark looked at his watch. Just come now. Immediately, he looked at Pepper and made a gesture. Pepper nodded and said in a low voice, "The newspaper office has been notified." "That's fine. Jarvis, bring up the screen." "Okay, sir." The beam flashed, and the scene at the entrance of the manor appeared in front of everyone. 4 black SUVs of the same model as FB1. A one-eyed black marinated egg is particularly eye-catching. Pepper raised his head and looked at the car body. The table knife made traces on the table, and Happy drank silently. "Jarvis." Lark stretched out his hand, and a button was projected on the table. Lark took a sip of wine to moisten his throat and said calmly, "Who are you?" Fury looked up, with a sad expression on his dark old face, as if he was educating his unlucky boy. "Young man, you are in big trouble." Puff. "Who gave you the courage to say this?" Color. Lark was shocked. How could there be such a shameless person in the world? He almost wrote the word shameless on his face. "Okay, since you want to play, I don't mind playing with you." Lark put down his wine glass and said coldly, "Who are you?" "Young man, do you know how big a mistake you have made, and you have not yet learned from your mistakes?" "Who are you?" "This is a road of no return. You are still young and don't understand it." "Who are you? How sad it is to see you like this." "Who are you?" No matter what he asked, that was all Lark said back and forth. "Let him blow the wind and rain, and I will not move." After 3 times, Halu Dan seemed to realize that this little guy was not that easy to deceive. He put away his expression, honestly took out his ID and put it under the camera, and said seriously, "Nick Fury, Director, Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency." "Oh, hey, okay." Fury looked back, and the agents immediately lowered their heads and gently touched the guns in their hands with their fingers, as if they were the former goddesses in their hearts. Speaking again, Fury has switched to the identity of the King of Agents, with a deadpan expression and a cold tone. "Open the door." "No." Crack. A crack was torn in the document. Fury's heavy breathing echoed in the car, and his only remaining one eye burst into a piercing light. The momentum shrouded, and the car suddenly became quiet. Everyone held their breath and lowered their heads even lower. "Are the power plants in place?" Fury asked the air. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and the air suddenly became active. "ZZ is entering the control room, and found the control line of Stark Manor." "Very good." At the same time, Lark also received an alert from Jarvis. "Sir, the power plant has sent a message. They have received an order from FB1 to cut off the power to the manor." After the words fell, the second projection appeared. 2 black suits stood in front of a row of computers, and several employees wearing the uniform logo of the power plant stood aside. The black suit on the left noticed the strangeness of the monitor, and he grinned, making the scar on his face even more hideous. Is he really FB1? He doesn't look like a good person at first glance. The power plant employees looked at each other. "Who is this?" Pepper frowned. "It's so ugly." "Indeed," Happy agreed. "Looking so ugly, I guess it's some unimportant little character." "Haha, yes, I think so too." The 3 of them laughed, and the dining table was full of joy, without any sense of imminent disaster. Rumlow waved his hand towards the monitor and put it to his ear. Jarvis read the lip reading and translated for everyone. "Director, that robot found me. Do you want to cut off the power supply?" "Wait for my order." Fury raised his head again and stared at the monitor with one eye. "Lark Stark, have you decided not to open the door?" "The signal in this area has been cut off by me, and the only thing you can rely on is the artificial intelligence. If the power supply is cut off, the manor will become a huge cage. At that time, I will not be as gentle as I am now." After saying this, his tone changed and he pretended to be sincere. "As long as you hand over my subordinate and attack Obade, I can help you think of a way. Coupled with Stark's energy, you can stay in it for a year or so at most before you come out. How about it?" After saying that, he thoughtfully showed a newspaper with the title, "Stark Group's New President Obadiah, There Was a Fire in the Villa Last Night." There was a strong wind blowing between the sky and the earth, the leaves rustled, and Locke's mocking laughter sounded at the door. "Ha ha 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 ha, you made me laugh so hard, Nick Fury." You know, you just looked exactly like the mouse I killed in the morning. You always like to sneak into the kitchen when the master is not at home, close the door after eating and drinking, and euphemistically call it for you. Quote, ha 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 ha, this is the funniest joke I've ever heard in my life, ha ha ha. Insolent, wanton, hearty. Although the agents couldn't understand what Lark was talking about, it didn't stop them from imagining the scene where the chief turned into a mouse and struggled to survive in the sewer. Kind of fun. Humph. A person in the back seat accidentally laughed. Fury turned his head and the man covered his mouth in panic and shook his head wildly. Director, I didn't mean to, I really. Fury's black face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, anger spewed out of his eyes, and quickly ignited his whole body. Mother FXXKER. Boom, 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 pushing. Asuka was startled, the animals fled, Abao put down the stake, Pepper and the two looked at the gate of the manor. Locke raised his glass. Cheers. Cool. This wave of taunts can be called the best in history. There were no curse words in the whole process, but Fury was sprayed bloody. Ha 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 ha. Lark laughed heartily, and all the resentments he felt while watching the movie were finally made up for. This is Stark. Such excitement should come to light. Lark stood up with a smile and couldn't help but fill the bottle for the two of them. Abao also had a share. Then, under the surprised eyes of the three people, he directly grabbed the bottle. Dry. Grr. The two looked at each other in dismay, followed his example and drank it all in one gulp. Boom. Cool. After wiping off the wine stains, Rucker herds Pepper and Happy into the house, and it's time for scene. Now it's my turn. Lark lifted the black box at his feet and placed it on the table. After opening it, there were two small metal sticks and a strange device. It looked a bit like the kind of adhesive tape that was affixed to the body during a hospital examination. Pulse sensor. Jarvis, follow the plan. Okay, sir. At the gate of the manor, several men in black worked together to lift the corpse down, blood dripping from the big hole in the chest. The marksmanship is pretty good. The light beam flashed, two projections appeared, and everyone looked up. The picture on the left is slightly gloomy. A man in black with ragged clothes and scars was lying on the ground, with several wires attached to his body, which were connected to the wall socket through a small box. The crowd who had just calmed down were immediately shocked. They recognized at a glance that it was Coulson who disappeared in the morning and was the target of this rescue trip. Looking at the scars on his body, it was obvious that he had been abused, and he was in a state of being hanged by life support. When had S.H.I.E.L.D. employees suffered such humiliation? Several people immediately volunteered to sneak into the villa to rescue Coulson. Director, let me go. Director, director. Fu Rui glanced over, taking everyone's expressions into his eyes. This trip was a bit rewarding, and the hearts of the people below gathered together again. He was about to speak, but Lark interrupted him. He didn't want to see a group of orangutans barking. Nick Fury, you must have recognized the device on Coulson's body, and I definitely don't need to explain to you the function. Fury's pupils shrank suddenly. How did he know Coulson's name? Lark calmly put the pulse sensor sticker on his chest and continued. I took great pains to save Coulson's life. I tied the life support device directly to the manor's power supply. With my financial resources, I can protect him for the rest of his life without worrying about machine power failure and accidental death. How about it? Am I very sweet? Haha. Quote. After Lark finished speaking, the sensor was already tied around his waist, and he grabbed a metal handle left and right. Oh, by the way, in order to prevent you from arranging snipers, I also made an additional set of sensors. As long as it detects that my pulse stops, or there is a gap of more than 3 seconds, the instrument on your agent will also stop working simultaneously. As long as 30 seconds, he can get his wish and reunite with his family. How about it? Am I very sweet? Haha. Quote. A brace. The collar of the shirt was open, and several red wires were winding down and gathered at the waist. The cuffs were rolled up, and 2 black iron rods were held in the palm of his hand. In the projection, Lark was laughing wildly, with a red light flashing on his chest, and Coulson was lying miserably on the ground, making him look like a big devil. Ferocious, terrible, incompatible with his elegant appearance, this look should be seen in a bank robbery scene. The atmosphere suddenly became strange, the agents shut up one after another, and Fury frowned. Things are getting out of hand. Sure enough, Lark spoke again. Soft voice, white teeth. Much like the big brother next door. Nick Fury. Let's play a game. Locke flicked his finger lightly, and the left projection zoomed in. The bet is Coulson's life. How about it, my Lord Chief? Lark looked at Fury with sly eyes. It was as if he had already determined that he would agree to the bet. The two sides fell silent for a while. Call, call. Locke's face was calm but his horse was shaking, his heart was pounding, and his palms were already soaked in sweat. He can't wait to take a big breath. But, no, now, whenever he shows a hint of cowardice, what awaits him will be the final chapter of his destiny. Strong. There is only strength, so strong that Fury dare not put a gun on his forehead, so strong that the next time Fury sees him detour. In this way, there is hope of survival. At the same time, he was also betting. Bet on Coulson's status in Fury's heart, bet on Coulson's name being revealed, bet on Fury's curiosity, the scars on Coulson's body. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Time passed by. Fury was sullen, not knowing what he was thinking. The director didn't say anything, so his subordinates naturally didn't dare to make mistakes, even though they were extremely turbulent inside. For a long time, Fury's ears twitched slightly, and he raised his head and looked at Lark. Playing what? Bingo, take the bait. Lark breathed a sigh of relief, and remained calm on the face, quickly introducing the content of the game. Jarvis projected a topographic map of the manor, with the location of the middle villa marked with a red dot, the hostage. Below it is a picture that says, Kidnapper, Jaguar. The rules of the game are very simple. Players only need to break through the kidnappers, encirclement and rescue the hostages within the specified time, and they will be considered successful. Requirements: only assault rifles, pistols, daggers and other cold weapons are allowed. Time limit: 6 hours. Quote, Lark pulled the satiated Abau to the side, held down its big round head so that everyone could see clearly, and traced back and forth between it and the map with his fingers. Well, the game is very simple. I'm afraid this person is not a fool. Everyone looked at each other. Such a large terrain, guarded by only a jaguar, where does he have the confidence? Even if your leopard can fly, as long as there are enough of us, flying a kite will still exhaust you. No matter how you look at it, it's a sure win. Thinking of this, the SHIELD agents couldn't help but feel restless, and they all looked at their director. Order now. Fury is an old fritter after all. Where are these machine guns? They won't wait for my people to step in and fire. Will not. Okay, let's discuss it. Random. Fury walked to the last car, the door opened, and a row of monitors showed the details of the interior of the manor, and Lark was there. As the king of secret agents, he does one thing on the surface and another behind the scenes. He ordered several technicians. Transfer all combat personnel from the New York branch and have Rumlow report directly here. Also, where is Hawkeye now? Received. The order has been issued. Received. The order has been issued. A guy with a pale face replied after typing on the keyboard for a while. Director, Hawkeye is now in Washington, D.C., and it will take about 40 minutes to fly here. You need to call. Call. Received. The order has been issued. The screen on the left lit up, and a beautiful woman with fiery red hair appeared, with the cockpit behind her. Director, why don't I try it? Natasha, your home court is not here. Hawkeye and them are enough tonight. Understood. I'll keep an eye on him. After receiving the news, New York SHIELD immediately took action, and cars drove out of the base and set off towards Stark Manor. Naturally, such a huge team could not escape the attention of interested people, and several vans with the newspaper logo printed on them followed far behind the team. 40 minutes later, the convoy entered the border of Nassau County, got off Highway 101, drove for another 10 minutes, and crossed 2 blockades to reach the manor. Dozens of cars stopped, and a crowd of people in black came out. The task had already been issued. Everyone took out the equipment from the trunk of the car, dagger plus pistol plus rifle. Fury didn't mean to be modest, and strictly followed Lark's standards. The command vehicle has been modified and turned into a temporary command post. The windbreaker stood upright, and Fury stood in front of the map, with Rumlow beside him. Director, do you want me to bring a few people to test it first? No matter how special that leopard is, I don't believe it can stop bullets. No, since he is so arrogant, then I will satisfy him. When everyone is in position, press on together. People, just live. Quote, clear. On the other side, Locke watched the projection gradually surround the manor, densely packed with small red dots. His body trembled, and his saliva almost stayed. Fury is so sweet and knows that he lacks a soul. Calling 100 or 10 people on the phone and scattering them is not clearly saying, take it off, come quickly. Eat this group of people, and the energy is rolling. Locke was overjoyed and opened his arms to hug Abau's head, and looked down at its big Causelan eyes. Ah Bao, my future happiness depends entirely on you. Give me some strength. If you win, I will prepare the most luxurious meal for you. How about the leopard? Leopard stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, blinking his eyes. Oh. What? Both sides. I didn't expect you, a thick-browed guy with big eyes, to be so dirty-minded. You even dislike one of them and want to hug him from both sides. I don't even get the same treatment. Ooh, okay, I promise you, it will definitely be arranged clearly. After making a big promise to appease the top general, Lark struck while the iron was hot and couldn't let these people escape. Pressing the button, the projection reappeared, and he banged on the table and shouted. Furry, are you ready? How many people have called out quickly? Do you know that I am up and down 1,000,000 every minute, and I am very busy? Listen, is this a human language? Sure enough, every good thing about Stark. Capitalists, they should be caught and hung from street lamps. Since you're so anxious, let's get started. Fury appeared in a windbreaker. He pointed at the scarred face behind him. I hope you won't cry later. Rumlow cut his throat. I will be gentle. Lark laughed angrily. Where did you get the courage to say this? Let me see how Abau will deal with you later. Okay, then I declare, the hostage rescue game has officially begun. With a big hand press, his projection disappeared, and a countdown appeared on Coulson. 5:59, 59, 5:59, 58. Abau, I leave it to you. Locke rubbed Abau's round head for the last time, watched it disappear into the night, looked up at the sky, got up satisfied and walked towards the villa. The moon is really round. Locke sat down on the sofa, leaned back, found the most comfortable position to lie down, threw the metal handle with his hands and rolled it under his feet. My hands are sore, I just need one on my chest. Just as he stretched out his hand to ask Jarvis to release the projection, he put a bottle of water in the palm of his hand, turned his head, and saw Happy bent over at 90 degrees, with a fat smile like a chrysanthemum, respectful and flattering. Brother, please drink some water. What's the situation? Locke tilted his head. What happened to him? Pepper stood up helplessly, pointed outside and then pointed at Happy, and then gestured like a gorilla, and Lark almost spit out. After suffering the death of brain cells, Locke probably guessed what she meant. Pretend to appear holy in front of others. Handsome. Want to learn. The road is getting wider, brother. Lark gave him an approving look and smiled like an old father. Don't worry, let's play with them first. Could it be said that Happy glanced out the window and sat next to Lark, the sofa bouncing like waves. Jarvis, bring up the screen. In a short period of time, the manor was completely surrounded, and the seaside side had landed. Countless small dots formed a circle that gradually shrank. He was bound to be put in a cage and turned into a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. It's time for dinner. Locke slowly closed his eyes, and followed his spiritual induction to switch to Abau's sight. Puff, puff, flapping his hooves, he leapt a few meters, and Abau had arrived at the beach, which was the closest to the villa, only tens of meters away. Its excellent eyesight allowed it to clearly distinguish the gunman hiding behind the steps. With a low growl, his body towered high like a taut spring, and in the next second it turned into a flying arrow. There was a large open space in front. The enemy quickly discovered it and opened fire quickly with a cry of surprise. Look over there, that's the leopard. Ahead, it spotted us, opened fire. Puff, puff, puff. The bullet hit the stone floor and scattered debris, making the same popping sound as a silencer. Facing the rain of bullets, Abau has no fear at all, giving full play to his advantages and advancing in a zigzag shape. His swift figure dazzles the enemy. Bullets are always one step behind him. It's so fast, I can't aim it right. Reload, reload, cover. In this scene, the fully automatic rifle can only last for 3 seconds. The sound of the gunfire weakened. Abao jumped up high and roared at the right time. The moonlight shone down and covered him with gauze. Roar. Ding 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 ding. Can't fight. Poof. What kind of monster is this? Hurry up. Poof. Group 1. Support. Puff. On the beach, a flash of fluorescent light dances along with dots of sparks, with a graceful figure like an elf, and the agent under him is like a devout believer, constantly dedicating himself. Or a finger, or a broken arm, or a chest. At the end of the song, the elf floated away, and the agent returned to the embrace of nature as usual. Quick, quick, quick. A few seconds later, Scarface led people to rush over. The moment he saw the corpse, even he almost couldn't resist it, it was too bloody. A pile of fragments, stacked together, the edges are smooth and neat, like a sharp knife. It was freezing cold. A red beam flashed, and another pair of support teams received the request. 10 people stepped forward and walked out of the woods on the other side. How are they still saved? The distance and darkness made it difficult for him to see clearly. Rumlow shook his head, gestured for himself to look, and at the same time said to him, "Your team is so long, you are not afraid of being attacked. I didn't meet that leopard on the way here, how about you?" The man first had the same expression as Rumlow, then, patted the guy on the head, and said with disdain, "Don't even look at what I'm wearing on my head. The Bureau's latest night vision device. With it, no matter how dark it is, you won't be afraid of not being able to hit that guy." That person said, "I can't hit." He took it for granted that it was too dark to see clearly, and automatically filled his brain with, "can't hit," which led to the birth of tragedy. Rumlow nodded halfway and then stopped, always feeling that something was wrong, and when he turned his head, he caught a glimpse of a black shadow jumping down from the tree. Below, there was a long line. Rumlow yelled and raised his gun brazenly. "Watch the right side." Puff puff puff. The AK sprayed out flames, and the yellow warhead arrived in an instant. Abao was beaten to a pulp. Before Rumlow could be happy, a cold light flashed in front of his eyes. Shish, shish. 2 big heads rose into the sky. "Watch out for its claws." Rumlow's pupils shrank, and he hid behind a tree for an instant, and when he raised his head again, the team that had been drawn away was completely pulled away. There was dead silence. Carefully looking around, he pressed the intercom and whispered, "Command room, report the location." "Director, the thermal scanner did not detect the target." "I'm not here either." "I don't have one here either." The command post was in chaos, and the SHIELD agents in uniform were sweating profusely. Are all these instruments broken? Otherwise, why couldn't the leopard be found? With the advanced level of their equipment, it would be useless even if the leopard hid itself in the woods. A single sweep of the instrument would reveal its true form. On the east side of the map, a gap appears in the red circle, and dozens of red dots move toward that direction. Fury frowned tightly, and the light hit the back of his head, making him look more like a marinated egg at the moment. A screen in front is slowing down the whole process of the bullet hitting the leopard and the process of it grabbing and stretching out its claws. Ultra-clear Blu-ray quality without a trace of noise. "Natasha, lower the flying altitude and be responsible for aerial reconnaissance. If necessary, try to launch the capture net. Receive. Where's Hawkeye?" This sentence was asked to the dark-skinned guy beside him. Quick. Just as he was about to speak, the wind and sand blew through the curtain, and a Coon-type fighter jet stopped not far away. The hatch opened, and Hawkeye Colin Barton was wearing a black combat uniform with a bow and arrow on his back. When he looked up, the dark-skinned boy felt his eyes sting. "Director, I'm here." "Yeah." Fury, who had been gloomy all night, showed a rare smile at this moment, nodded and pointed at the screen. "Look, this is your goal tonight. Agile, cunning, sharp claws, and bulletproof skin. How is it? Do you have confidence?" Why don't I go back?" Hawkeye didn't answer, and played back the picture over and over again. His eyes were as bright as stars in the night sky. After a while, he lifted the curtain and strode away. "Get out of the moonlight and drive it into the woods." "Yes." The dark-skinned boy jumped up happily, holding the walkie-talkie with his orchid fingers to inform everyone. Everyone encircles and crushes the beast into the woods. ZZ, received, vomit. All the red dots on the map stopped together before they started moving towards the sea. So far, tonight's target is no longer Lark. Zitza. Click. On the beach, Ah Bao shattered the walkie-talkie with one paw, glanced around, jumped onto the big tree, and closed his eyes. The fluorescence on the body gradually disappeared and faded. No, it was turning to black, and the strands turned into mist, and the body shook and enveloped the whole body. It disappeared. Crash. Ha. Ha. Susu. Ripples gradually rise, waves gently slap the beach, and the sea breeze blows faintly, salty and sweet. The leaves were turning under the roots of the tree, and a newborn turtle poked its head out, looked at it, and then waved its fins, leaving a long mark on the ground. Sue, Sue, slap. The frail body of the little sea turtle stuck to the gap of the military boots, and remained there for a long time. The target is in this area, surround it. The 4th and 5th groups are in charge of the north, the 6th and 7th groups you guard the west, the 8th and 9th groups go to the east, cross forward and drive it to the middle of the woods, and now spread out. If someone looked down from a high altitude at this moment, they would find that the 200 meters of land was crowded with people. Agents holding firearms slowly approached the center without missing any blind spots. Woo 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 woo. The slight sound of the engine whirled overhead, the hatch was half opened, Hawkeye was holding a bow and arrow, his sharp eyes scanned the bottom, and the dense leaves could not block his gaze. Ha. Ha. Sha. A trace of black shadow flashed across the branches and leaves, Hawkeye's elbow moved slightly, and a sharp black arrow broke through the space, penetrated the black shadow without any hindrance, and penetrated into the ground. The tail of the arrow trembled. What happened? Obviously hit it. Hawkeye frowned and turned the handle of the bow, drawing out the second arrow. Rustle. Call out. The black shadow reappeared, the electric arc flew out, and a black mist under the faint blue luster quickly shuttled through the forest, and the corpses were everywhere in the place it passed, quietly, without a single sound. The agents below found the target. The encirclement suddenly collapsed into a straight line, and the gunshots rang out, trees fell in rows and rows. The mist was suppressed by the firepower and could not move. From time to time, the sound of gold and iron was heard, mixed with wailing. Painful in his heart, Abao's body trembled, and the misty milk swallow draped over his body, a trace of exhaustion flashed in his eyes. It roared at the crowd, stepped lightly on all fours and rushed to the left, about to leave the battlefield. As an assassin, it is very clear about its home field, and frontal attack is not its advantage. Naturally, the agents would not let the executioner go, and followed behind with guns in hand, but even if the leopard was injured, it was not easy for them to catch up. Pity. Natasha sighed. There was nothing she could do after entering the dense forest. Seeing that the jaguar was about to disappear, she pulled up and prepared to leave. Fury's eager voice sounded in the earphones. Zitsa. Natasha opened fire to stop it. That beast couldn't stop the machine gun fire. Director, the rules of the game or not. Natasha was stunned for a moment, with confusion on her pretty face. Follow orders, Agent Natasha Nomanov. Before she could recover, there was a sizzling sound in her ears. She turned her head and saw the driver cutting off her control. As ordered, the plane accelerated suddenly, drew an arc and landed in front of the Jaguar. After a brief acceleration, the machine gun under the belly resounded through the night sky like thunder. Boom, 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 boom. Time seemed to have come to a standstill, and there was a raging flame in front of him, and the huge warhead was spinning towards it, and the scratches on it were clearly visible. Abao stopped his movements, panic flashed in his eyes, and then he calmed down. The wind blew by, and the moment the bullet hit it, it disappeared in place. What? Where did it go? Did you see it? The scene was chaotic, and the command room was not peaceful. Fury slapped it on the table. His black face flushed again, and the command room was full of his roar. The others seemed to be under the spell of immobilization, and they were as quiet as a chilling cicada. Mother FXXKER. Why did it disappear? Find it for me. Villa. Lark opened his eyes suddenly, leaned on the coffee table and took a deep breath. Cold sweat broke out, and his clothes were soon wet. He thought he was ready, but he didn't expect to panic when the cannon fired. This feeling was completely different from when Obadi hit him. Maybe this is the difference between bullets and cannonballs. The clay figurine is still angry. Since you, the black stewed egg, broke the rules first, then I'm not welcome. I have to interrupt you with my claws tonight. Let's see if you dare to be arrogant in the future. Before he had time to explain to the two of them, Lark opened the panel and quickly connected 3 times. including Ah Bao. A total of 4 shadow panthers appeared in the living room. Crush them. Roar, 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 roar. The leopards split up and ran towards the woods at both ends, and towards the gate of the manor at both ends. The speed is appalling. Such a big movement naturally couldn't escape Fury's eyes. He didn't have time to wonder why 3 more leopards appeared. He immediately issued a retreat order. If they didn't leave, all the people in the New York branch would really be trapped here. 2 Quinjet fighter jets were ordered to begin covering the evacuation of the agents. The sound of machine guns was deafening. But they all forgot one thing. Here, yes, Stark Manor. Top arms dealer. Insufficient firepower phobia sufferers. Rack Stark's home. Jarvis, open all your weapons and fight him hard. Roger that. The machine gun matrix deployed around the manor was activated, and the red beam diffused, turning into a ruthless harvester under the control of Jarvis. The wall shrinks, and several missiles are launched, with the striking Stark Industries logo printed on them. Locking on the target, Lark did not hesitate to order direct fire. Fury was excited when he received a report from his subordinates in the morning that something happened to Coulson's team at Stark Manor. Tony is missing. Lark is just a trash who has been lying around for more than 10 years, and the Stark group with a little wrist is not in his pocket. Fantasy is beautiful, but reality is not only skinny, but also gives him a blow on the head. The SUV couldn't stop the fire from Vulcan. In the panic, Fury could only drive away. As soon as he stepped onto the road, a hissing sound came from his ears. Turn back. Boom, boom, boom. The sky, the ground, and 3 big fireballs exude dazzling light. Gorgeous. Eye-catching. Beside the fireball, the black SUV was overturned on the side of the road. The body was dented, the glass was broken, and the upper body of the black-skinned guy on the co-pilot was twisted at 90 degrees, facing the driver's seat, and the back was full of debris. Lanhua pointed to the woods with an expression of disbelief. Unfortunately, he ran away. Lark sighed. Fury was indeed the king of agents, and he stepped in at a critical moment and actually allowed him to escape. Ah Bao moved his nose slightly in front of the blood stain, rubbed the ground with his sharp claws, and growled to show that he could catch up, with anger hidden in his eyes. Forget it. Lark shook his head, squatted down and hugged its head, looking at the shallow scars on its back. He said softly. Thank you for your hard work tonight. Let's heal our injuries and play with him slowly in the future. And, have you forgotten your girlfriend? Lark pursed his lips towards the villa and looked at it playfully. It's still 2. Abao broke away from his arm, looked first at the direction of the jungle, then at the villa, and blinked. Who should choose between the defeated general and the beauty? With a long roar, Ah Bao twisted his buttocks and walked away. Who? I'm coming. Ha 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 ha. Sure enough, no male creature can resist this temptation. Lark got up and walked towards the villa, clicking on the panel on the way. Summoned animal. Shadow Panther, quantity 4 inches. Note: energy can be consumed to heal and restore the summoned animals. Balance: 113 energy value. Fu Rui deserves to be a big fat sheep. With just such a swipe, he will get 113 energy points, plus the 3 Shadow Panthers he just exchanged. Fight to get rich. It feels good to have money. Lakmez turned to the list of skills exchange, and of course he wanted to buy it with a huge sum of money. But he covered his mouth skillfully. The first few times, he screamed out after only 10 energy points were returned to his body. 20 was so satisfying. Rack Stark. There must be no social death. Whether to redeem. Primary energy detector. Price, 20 energy value. Yes. Exchange successful. Skills have been refreshed. The balance slipped, and a warmth grew from the chest, integrating into the whole body. Coming. Lark stopped, his body tensed, and his hands were as strong as if they were facing a powerful enemy. Tick-tock, tick-tock. For a minute, I felt warm and comfortable. 2 minutes later, my thighs felt a little itchy and I really wanted to scratch them. Wait, I started to move towards my upper body. After waiting for 3 minutes for the physical changes to end, Lark still had no idea of screaming. His eyes widened and he tried to spread his fingers. He raised his other hand, ready to silence at any time. Do you need help? I see you have been in this position for 2 minutes. The leaves swayed and Happy walked out from behind the tree, his black suit jacket stained with blood. He opened his hand and gestured in front of him, signaling, I am big, do you want to try it? Bite. Have you checked over there? I've seen it all. I found a series of footprints on the beach. The scarred face must have escaped from the sea. So smart, Rucker blurted out, completely taken aback. You must know that this manor is located on the tip of the island, and it is also a few kilometers away from the nearest coast. Ichiban's physical strength must have been reduced after a battle. Even if Crossbones was a top agent, it would still be enough for him to drink a pot. In his previous life, he heard that there was a performance called Fish Out of Water, but it was a pity that he never got to see it. Come on, let's go see what Pepper has gained. Once the inventory is complete, we can move early. Not counting the entrance, there were about 120 agents who entered the manor, and % of them were concentrated near the beach. After Lark ordered, most of them were machine gunned to pieces on the spot. In addition to the 2 bombed Quinjet fighter jets, the whole manor was smashed to pieces, the smell of blood mixed with the smell of barbecue. Tisk. Just as they were thinking, a loud roar came from a distance, and the two looked at each other and quickened their pace. Roar. Hawkeye was holding a broken bow and confronting Ah Bao. Blood was oozing out from a gash on his forehead, dripping down and smearing on his eyelids. He was circling back and forth, never leaving his feet 1 foot. Behind him was a woman with an empty quiver in her hand, half kneeling on the beach, her legs were faintly bleeding, and her dark red hair was messily draped over her shoulders. Extremely embarrassed, blood dripped down, a layer of red covered the eyes, the scene was no longer clear, and the beating figure gradually merged with the night. The smell of death permeates the air. Abao walked back and forth on the ground with his body bent, his sharp eyes fixed on Hawkeye. It remembered the man, and it was his sharp blue arrow that exposed the fog, which caused it to be set on fire and almost seriously injured. The experience of living in the jungle tells it that anyone who hurts himself should die. The other 3 shadow panthers were splashing around in the water, splashing countless water splashes, adding a sense of weirdness to the tense atmosphere of the scene. Finally, when the blood was about to flow into the eyeball, Hawkeye couldn't hold it back, and quickly drew back his sleeve with his right hand and swiped it in front of his eyes. Abao's eyes lit up, the top predator gene came online, his feet dug deep holes in the beach, and his right paw was raised high, flashing a cold light. Roar. Eagle Eye seemed to be aware of it, and he subconsciously bent his legs, preparing to jump away. But Ah Bao was too fast. Just when he was about to make a move, a strong wind hit his face and his scalp stung. Finished. No. Natasha stretched out her hand and shouted in despair. Don't kill. Boom. Hawkeye flew upside down, knocked Natasha flying a few meters, tumbled a few times and sank into the water. Luck. Do you think that after he wakes up, there will be a scene where he recognizes the thief as his brother? I always watch TV like this. PFF'd. Who? You. Happy. Look at those arms and those 8-pack abs, tisk tisk. I feel weird. I don't know how to appreciate it. Pepper, do you think he and I are quite brothers? Hi, my eyesight is not good recently, it should, maybe, probably. Come on, the two of you take a closer look to see if I've lost weight. Look at the sleeves, bust, waist, and hips. Roll. Go away. Who the hell is looking at your ass? Lark flew up and kicked. Happy picked up the watermelon and continued to chew on it. Pepper hugged Ah Bao and covered her mouth and chuckled. The 3 of them were either paralyzed or sitting, each leaning against a shadow panther. Hawkeye and Natasha were lying side by side on the ground, so that the stretched luxury car seemed too small at this moment. There were flashing neon lights outside the window, and several cars with Stark printed on them, guarding the front and back, headed towards New Jersey. Pepper picked up a piece of watermelon and fed it to Abao, and said calmly. Luck, we killed so many people from this bureau tonight, is there really no problem? That one-eyed blackhead looks fierce at first glance. With the foreshadowing of the previous few times, she didn't panic at all when the bloodshed manor was staged tonight. Seeing the corpse vomit was not counted, it was too bloody. Happy's ears moved slightly. He silently put down the mirror he had taken out from nowhere, and tilted his head curiously. Locke was too busy nibbling on the watermelon, and Hawkeye and Natasha were lying right in front of him. Locke ate the last piece of fruit, wiped the corner of his mouth and leaned comfortably on the big cat, and said leisurely. I guess someone is already waiting for us at the gate of the factory. Hey, are you talking about her? Who? Ah. At the gate of Stark Industry, a glamorous woman leaned against a silver car, her skirt half open to reveal her delicate collarbone. If you look closely, you will find that her eyes are empty and unfocused, staring at the night in a daze, and the dazzling lights of the motorcade hit her face, and she regains consciousness a little bit, but it still gives people a feeling of being out of control. This. How is it completely different from the Maria Hill I remember, so decadent? As the convoy drove into the gate, Locke asked the driver to stop and lowered the window. The faint scent of jasmine rushed into his nostrils, as elegant and quiet as the beauty in front of him. Did you come to find me? Hill lowered his head and looked at the man in front of him carefully. His blonde hair was loose and his skin was delicate and smooth. Most notable were the eyes, bright, soft, and as clear as a child's. Delicate and pretty. She came to this conclusion. Is there something on me? Lark glanced at himself and found no problem, then looked at Pepper with doubts. Pepper shrugged her shoulders first, and then gestured with her fingers on her head. Is there something wrong with her here? Happy? Forget it. His eyes were shining, and he was obviously thinking about something unreliable. Unable to get an answer, Locke had to come by himself, and he stretched out his hand and shook it in front of his eyes. Hey, wake up, wake up. Ah, sorry to be distracted. Hill woke up and patted her face, secretly hating how she would have slipped up at the critical moment if it hadn't been for that black braised egg. She took a few deep breaths to regain her composure. Maria Hill, the head of the New York branch of the Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics Support Agency, is here to make a deal with you. Only represents the New York branch. Oh, a word to awaken the dreamer. Lark suddenly recalled that Maria Hill in front of him had another identity besides the commander of S.H.I.E.L.D. and an 8th-level agent. Head of New York branch. Based on the principle of proximity, the people Fury mobilized tonight must be the people from the New York branch, but he didn't know what percentage of the more than 100 people they accounted for. But judging from the tone of the last sentence and the lost expression just now, I guess it's probably at least 70%. The biggest victim tonight. What do you want to change? Tell me. Locke raised his eyebrows, put his hands on the window, and looked at her with a smile. Cheap, so cheap. Hill choked for breath, and the beautiful impression of him in his heart was instantly shattered into pieces. For now, all she wants is to make a quick deal and get out of here. Pepper was laughing so hard in the car, but she couldn't make a sound, so she buried her head in Abau's arms and chuckled. Happy. His eyes were still shining. Taking another deep breath, Maria turned around and took out a brown paper bag from the co-pilot and put it in Locke's hand. Here is the Land Bureau, which holds % of the shares of Stark Industries. I hope to exchange it for Natasha and the three of them. How about it? After she finished speaking, she couldn't help but exert a little force on the hand holding the document. Ha ha. Opadri, as Howard's early friend and business partner, only holds % of the stock after including the sale. 8%, this number is definitely not low. According to today's market value, it would cost several $billion. To exchange for 3 prisoners, it can be said to be a sky-high price. Even if she releases the news, whether it is the military, FB1, C1A, etc., they will definitely not mind helping. But Lark closed the document, put away his smile, and returned to his cold look, his eyes as deep as amber without any emotion. No, you can only choose one of the two. He moved away, revealing Hawkeye and Natasha lying on the ground, and pointed to the factory gate. The one inside, don't talk about it. Coulson enjoyed VIP service, lying alone in another car, escorted by a special person, still comatose. Hill slapped the roof of the car with a slap, straightened up angrily, his eyes widened, he opened his mouth to curse, but something seemed to be stuck in his throat. This is 8%, billions of dollars. Not hundreds of thousands or millions. Pick one of two. Be careful if I sell him to Hammer Industries. The Osborne Group and they have been coveting Stark Industries for more than a day or two. Pick one of two. Do you believe it or not that I mobilized people to surround your factory? Pick one of two. Change to Natasha. Second choice. Similar scenarios, different results. The deal was concluded, and soon a medical car drove over from the corner. Several medical staff carefully carried the injured Natasha into the car and sent her to the hospital for treatment. Hill started the car and followed. The console lit up midway, and seeing that it was Nick Fury calling, she couldn't help but squeeze the steering wheel hard with both hands, making the steering wheel creak. Drop. Fury's weak voice came from the other end of the phone. Commander Hill, have the three of them been replaced? HMPH. Natasha has been sent for treatment. A simple attack actually resulted in the loss of more than 100 agents. I seriously suspect that you have committed malfeasance. I will report this matter to the Council truthfully. Director Fury, please prepare yourself. Commander Hill, hello, hi, slap. The phone hung up and a dark-skinned young man reported. Director, all information tonight has been sealed and classified as level 10. Only you have the authority to open it. Natasha's special agent ward is arranged next door. You will be notified as soon as she wakes up. Let's go too. The document was handed to Pepper. The car started and entered the factory and stopped at a glass building. As soon as the car door was opened, Abao and the others couldn't bear to jump out and started to have fun in the green belt. Instead of being afraid, the security guards gathered together and laughed and watched the show. It was just a leopard. With the boss's status, it would not be strange to raise a rhinoceros. It was already very late, and after the wounded were carried upstairs, Lark asked them to go back and rest. After saying hello to Pepper, Lark took Happy and drove to the northeast corner of the factory in a sightseeing car. As soon as I arrived, I saw two behemoths hovering over the factory. The wide wings are slightly curved, protecting the two turbo fans in the middle, and there is only a slight wind sound in the ears. Before leaving, Lark proposed to buy a Quinjet fighter, which might be broken, but Hill actually agreed. Jarvis, let them land carefully, this is my new toy. If it breaks, let's see what I do with them. Okay, sir. The shield pilot was still level, and stopped firmly on the ground. After the delivery, another plane lowered the rope, and the two pilots just hanged away. Something. After the people left, Lark couldn't bear it any longer. He jumped out of the car excitedly and looked around, his eyes filled with caution. Which boy didn't dream of flying when he was a kid? Locke woke up at dawn, his body strengthened several times, and his sleep time was shortened accordingly. The scenery outside the curtains is completely different from the manor, cold and dead. The employees are on vacation, and only security guards are on duty in the huge factory. He doesn't like this feeling. After washing up, Lark turned and went downstairs to control a large trailer to get the plane into the factory building. Strictly speaking, this aircraft is a transport aircraft and is mainly used for transporting soldiers and materials. The only offensive weapon is a 6-barreled Vulcan with a retractable abdomen. Anyone who bullies stragglers has to be on guard at all times, whether the opponent will pull out an individual air defense missile from his pocket. It's pitifully weak, and it's useless for nothing but concealment. Learning from Zorak can't solve this problem, but he can find someone who can solve it. Besides Tony, Stark Industries still has a group of capable weapon developers. Ordinary employees are on holiday. They are not lucky. Give me an honest 996. The evil capitalist, Lark. A group of people began to modify the weapons according to his requirements. With the assistance of Jarvis, the artificial intelligence, the efficiency was very fast. Return to the building. Ding. The silver-white elevator doors opened to both sides, and the luxurious interior decoration made Lark couldn't help complaining that Tony's aesthetic was as bold and vulgar as himself. Unbearable. Going further in, reality hit him head-on again. Abao lay on the balcony like a big brother, and 3 jaguars on the left and right leaned on him, sticking out their tongues from time to help it comb its hair. Seeing Locke come in, Abao stretched out his paws to hug concubine Bao, and raised his head. Brother, look at me, this is okay. Just as the sun rose, the golden beam hit Lark's face, and tears. Unstoppable flow. Rack Stark, billionaire, Diamond King Lao Wu. Actually, by a leopard. Beep. No, I must break you up, not for anything else but to save one sad person from this cold society. Pepper. Abao said he misses you so much. Pepper liked Abao very much at first, and when the other 3 Shadow Panthers appeared, they blatantly took them as their own, and wished they could hold them in their arms all the time. In fact, everyone knows who is hugging whom. This is a pain for Leopard. He is the king of the jungle, he wants to play, go wild, and surf in the sea. With such a cat slave, he feels that Leopard's life is gloomy. Really? Come out as soon as I finish washing. Pepper's voice came from the next door. As expected, Ah Bao trembled, and immediately ran to the elevator without caring about Wen Shang. As he passed by, he flicked his tail on Locke's leg as revenge. Ha 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 ha, HMPH, Xiao Mian, you still want to fight with me? Rucker puffed out his chest proudly, his head held high. After breakfast, Luck was lying on the balcony with his tablet device. Ah Bao failed to run away and was caught and used as a pillow for the leopard. At this moment, he was lying on the ground, looking downstairs helplessly. Farewell, my concubines. Roar, don't move, you're shaking me so hard that I can't see the screen clearly. Lark counted 20 days since he woke up. The first half of the month was busy recovering his body and understanding the world. The last 5 days were either busy killing people or guarding against being killed. It's rare to be leisurely now, so naturally you have to squander it, otherwise how can you be worthy of the surname Stark? How to say that sentence, a dude must look like a dude. It's a pity that it's not the ancient times of the East, otherwise the high and low dresses and brocade robes, and then the whole birdcage slips into the street. No, there must be evil servants, that's the essence. After shopping, Luck subconsciously typed, fruit phone, into the browser. Before his death, he was short of money and could only afford Fruit 18. He didn't dare to think about Promax Ultra Plus. Now I have money. Lord, the product you searched for was not found. No. Lark sat up abruptly, a flash of lightning flashed through his mind. With trembling hands, I searched again several times, and found that there was indeed no such company as Fruit. His little heart couldn't help beating. Isn't this a copycat? In an instant, he even thought of the name of the product, and it was called Stark Mobile. With Tony's genius brain, there are no technical problems at all, and coupled with the popularity of the Stark Group, once it is launched, it will definitely sell well. Crush. Thinking of this, Luck couldn't sit still anymore, threw down his tablet and rushed straight into the office. Pepper, how much equity do we own now? The total adds up to 42%. What's wrong? Too little. You asked the newspaper to act in advance to spread the information online, and Jarvis cooperated to suppress the company's stock price. I'm going to find Tony now, and I'll send you a message when I find it, and you can release the tragic photos we took at the manor. Quote. Remember. After finishing speaking, Locke turned around and called about to go straight to the factory building. After a while, Stark 1, which was refitted, disappeared into the sky. After the person left, Pepper came back to his senses under the reminder of Jarvis. Immediately, he couldn't help pacing back and forth in the office, his face couldn't hide the surprise. On the plane, Lark had no time to visit the interior, and gave Jarvis full control. He closed his eyes and entered the state of mind. It's 9 a.m. Federal Time, 5 p.m. in Afghanistan, and the plane is expected to arrive 6 hours later. If Tony could be found during this period, he could attack at night and return before dawn. Perfect. With the yellow sand flying and the setting sun sinking, Lark's perspective switched back and forth between the 3 vultures, and he ordered them to fly at full speed. The area that Jarvis had previously delineated was in the mountainous area about 100 kilometers away from the incident. The 3 vultures had almost found it in the past few days, leaving only the last small area that they had not searched. It only took 2 hours for Luck to find the camp, which was surrounded by hills, with a trail running through the front and back, and the open-air part in the middle was covered with earthy gray canvas. Locke was overjoyed, and immediately landed in front of the terrorists and stopped directly on the slope, directly opposite the entrance of the cave. A few people just glanced at them and ignored them. Just a vulture. As the sun sets and the temperature drops sharply, everyone hiding in the cave must have come out. They gather together in 2s and 3s and take advantage of the last light to light their tobacco. I can't understand what I'm talking about. Lark retracted his ears regretfully. He has already counted. There are 25 people on the ground, and there are 3 more on guard duty on the mountain call. The cave is so deep and winding that it is difficult to see clearly. Sir, Afghanistan is here. Please enter the detailed location of the target. Locke put on the equipment and guided Jarvis according to the induction, and stopped at the call 500 meters away from the camp. Then he took Ah Bao on foot and Jarvis was in charge of aerial surveillance. 4 minutes later the camp was in sight. 3 vultures were scattered around. To avoid firing and detonating the accumulated missiles later, Lark gave the order, and the 3 vultures swayed twice and spread their wings to pounce into the crowd, their sharp claws flashing with cold light. Shish, shish, ah, my eyes. Where did these dead birds come from? Kill them quickly. Bring the stick over here. The 3 vultures showed great power and rushed the crowd to run. Naturally, it was impossible to shoot in this situation. The onlookers rushed to help, so almost all 20 or so people crowded together. Seeing this opportunity, Luck glanced at Abao, pulled out his dagger and dashed to kill a sentry who was watching the show. Abao went straight to the entrance of the cave along the hill. The night provided him with the most perfect camouflage, and the slight footsteps were covered by the screams of the crowd. The noise spread into the cave, and both sides stopped moving at the same time. Tony put down the hammer and looked at the iron door. His hair was messy and stuck to his scalp, his body was covered in dirt, and the smell of sweat mixed with a metallic smell made him look exactly like a coal digger. There is a steel plate placed under the body, with a ring cut out in the middle by equipment, and the surroundings are slightly curved into an arc. It seems like someone is screaming. Ethan took a step and turned his ears sideways, trying to get as close to the passage as possible. The sound was refracted and absorbed by the rock wall, and it was already very weak. He could barely make out the words, bird, and catch people. Tony's eyes moved slightly, then darkened for a moment. He glanced around, picked up the hammer, banged it on the iron plate, and said angrily, "What a pity for such a good opportunity." Orange sparks lit up his eyes. Ethan sighed. The conditions here are indeed too poor. There is not even the most basic mechanical processing equipment, which greatly slows down the progress of armor production. The bald head stared at the monitor without raising his head and asked, "Let's be quiet outside, and don't attract people from the military." "Yes." One of his men stood up and answered, holding a gun and leaving the cave. Then he flew back at a faster speed and hit the wall, a pair of bloody eyes facing the bald head. Da 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 da. The enemy is attacking, copying guys. There are enemies. What are the people outside doing? The bald man was furious and immediately led his men to break out. The fierce gunfire completely alarmed Tony. He threw down the hammer in excitement and rushed to the door. He gently opened the small window and looked out. "What is this, Ethan? Come and see." Tony's whole body was almost pressed against the door, and his right hand was waving excitedly. Ethan was also curious about what he saw. Through the shouts, he could tell that the terrorists were suffering heavy casualties. "I'll go, its claws are so long. Bullets can't penetrate its skin." With the help of the weak light, the two saw a leopard flying over the eaves and walls of the cave, its claws appearing and disappearing, and it always took a fresh life away every time. Having learned the lesson from the last time he was caught in fire, Abao took full advantage, and the bullets hit the wall behind him and the gravel flew everywhere. This group of trash, with their bald heads, threw away their pistols and went back to the monitoring room to pick up a machine gun. With his big bald heads, they looked like gangsters. The problem with the angle was that his movements happened to be seen by the two of Tony, who exclaimed at the same time, "Be careful, dodge, go to hell." The bald-headed man stared at Abao fiercely and pulled the trigger without hesitation. Clatter, boom, the bald head exploded instantly, red and white scattered all over the passage, and a dark-skinned boy who shouted Jungwon ate it to his fill. "Tony! Ah! Ethan! Ah!" The sudden loud noise frightened everyone to a standstill, and Abao kicked his legs at the right time, turning into a black on in the air. Shish, 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 people row, reappears. Tony! Ah! Ethan! Ah! Tony held on to the iron door and retched for a while. He had already vomited out all the food he had eaten in the past few days, and Ethan was not much better. The picture is so beautiful. The gunfire stopped, and the outside suddenly fell into silence. The water tank on the wall kept leaking out, which made people feel hairy. Tick-tock, tick-tock, boom. The chain clattered to the ground and the iron door opened. The black helmet has no luster, and the owner's face cannot be seen clearly due to the glass panel. The magical leopard stood obediently at his feet, tilting his head as if looking at him. "Who are you?" Tony held a hammer in his hand and looked at this mysterious man warily. The pure black clothes undoubtedly made him even more weird at this moment. He always felt that this piece of equipment was very familiar, but for a moment he couldn't remember where he had seen it before, and his mind was full of white flesh. At this time, Locke couldn't tell what kind of mood he was in, excited, perturbed. Maybe it's joy. The original body's 30-year memory occupied half of his life. Haven't seen you for a long time. Locke slowly took off his helmet. The dim light hit his face. His fair skin did not have a trace of spots, and his face was so familiar. Tony. Clang. The hammer fell to the ground and made a deep hole. Tony stretched out his right hand tremblingly, with tears in his eyes, step by step. When he touched it, the face was warm. Pupils are sky blue. The scar behind the ear is the same as in memory. It was really his brother, the brother who had been in bed for 15 years. Lack. Tony opened his arms and hugged him tightly, mouthing his name all the time, tears gradually blurring his face. Such a touching scene couldn't help but make Ethan's nose sour. Seeing the reunion of the two brothers, he couldn't help but think of his deceased family members. Very nice. Locke admitted that before a 10,000th of a second, he was excited and had a glimmer of expectation for this unmasked brother. After all, no one in kindergarten would want to have a big brother to support him. Now he just wants to push Tony away, walk alone to the valley, step into the desert, face the evening breeze, and breathe to his heart's content. There was once a piece of fresh air in front of me, but I didn't cherish it. If God can give me another chance, I hope, another one. Tony. Okay. Remember the first time we went to the stables? Remember, what happened? What was your first reaction at the time? Smelly. The air was suddenly quiet. Tony let go of his arm, wiped his snot and tears on Locke's shoulder in retaliation, and then took the blueprint as if nothing happened. Lark and Ethan looked at each other. Haha, hello, Rackstark. Ethan. After the farce ended, everyone packed up and evacuated, but it didn't really matter. Tony had been tied up for a month, and the armor had just begun to be forged. One person and one piece just took away. Abao led the way. Tony and Ethan held the armor, and Locke walked behind carrying the heaviest iron plate. As an old World of Warcraft player, he looked at the shining metal plate, and a sentence flashed in his mind. Silver scale breastplate, blue quality, 5 gold pieces. Out of danger, Tony's mind became active and he kept his eyes on Abao and refused to leave, laughing from time to time. Luck has a black line behind him. If you look at the leopard after being closed for a long time, you will feel that it has a clear face. No, I have to stop this bad relationship, and Locke bumped the two of them away at a faster pace. When his younger brother woke up, he saved him, and he also raised a magical leopard. Tony thought these were enough to shock him. After all, it can all be explained by metaphysics. Then tell me, what is going on with this unique hovering aircraft? The Stark Group does not have this technology. Not before he disappeared. Tony looked suspicious of life. Lark put down the metal plate and found Tony standing stupidly, not knowing what he was thinking, and greeted him. Come up quickly. If you don't leave, the military will come later. Coming. Everyone boarded the plane and lifted off, dropping a black thing and disappearing into the sky. Boom. With a loud noise, the ammunition piled up in the valley was completely detonated, and the flames reaching into the sky were clearly visible dozens of kilometers away. At a military base in Afghanistan, a soldier took off his earphones and reported. Colonel, I found it. The satellite found movement in a mountainous area 150 kilometers away from the base. After calculation, it matches the location where Mr. Stark was attacked. Send the coordinates to the helicopter squadron and ask them to prepare for takeoff. James Rhodes immediately stood up and rushed to the tarmac after saying, Finally found you, Tony. Naturally, it was not only the military that noticed the fire, but also another force. 2 Quinjet fighter jets took off 200 kilometers away. On the Apache gunship, Rhodes pinched the headset and asked anxiously, Sergeant, how long will it take for us to arrive? At first, he was only a liaison officer of the Stark Group as a military officer. After a period of contact, although the guy had a bad mouth, poisonous tongue, and arrogance. But there is no denying that he is a good friend. The pilot also knew the relationship between them very well. He chuckled and said, Colonel Rhodes, there is still 1 minute. Before he finished speaking, the pilot's expression changed drastically, and 2 red dots suddenly appeared on the airborne radar, approaching the helicopter at a speed comparable to that of a missile. There is a UFO in the 2 o'clock direction. The flight formation disperses and remains vigilant. Falcon 2 receive. Falcon 3 receive. Falcon 4 receive. After a moment, 2 special-shaped aircraft appeared, hovering in front of the helicopter formation. The relaxed atmosphere suddenly became tense. The hand holding the joystick moved upward slightly, and his thumb gently rested on the red cover. 4 Apaches were arranged high and low, half hidden behind the sand dunes, and the wind pressure of the propellers squeezed a circular area on the ground. ZZ, CIAY Chin Xiao Dui, Shiba Ma F5H81G, K3L8K7 Ideographic period. Received, checking, please stay where you are and don't make any threats, otherwise we will open fire directly. The base called the Falcon team, the identification code is correct, repeat, the identification code is correct, over. There was a sound of exhalation in the earphones, it was his own. When the flight team arrived, they saw a scorched valley with sporadic flames burning continuously. The plane stopped, and Rhodes shook hands with the Scarface symbolically, and walked ahead as the master, without much communication between the two parties. Outside of federal lands, there are many special departments using the name of the CIA. As long as their goals do not conflict, turning a blind eye is fine. After hard work, everyone successfully entered the half-covered cave. Rhodes looked at the surrounding environment, his face couldn't hide his surprise. Here he found the trace left by Tony. He saw the scarred man standing in front of a pile of equipment, covering his nose as if he was disgusted with the smell, shaking his head and asking the soldiers to call the investigators. Taking advantage of the moment he turned around, Rumlow quickly put a metal bowl into his pocket, said hello to Rhodes and left. Some khaki powder scattered on the ground. Happy, what do you think of this one? Does it look good? It's too student-like, it's not suitable for today, I'll change another one. Where is this white dress? This. There is a mobile clothes rack in the living room, which is full of various women's coats. Pepper is placing them one by one next to her. Happy, who was pulled over to act as an advisor, leaned on the sofa, his eyes narrowed slightly, and his head nodded gently. A very reliable look. In the end, Pepper chose the long white dress she gave herself for her birthday last year. She pushed the shelf back to the room with joy, and the wheels ran over Happy's feet accidentally. HMPH, ow. Happy woke up from the dream with a pig cry, just in time to meet Pepper's murderous eyes, shook his body, and squeezed out an ugly smile. Has the plane arrived? Okay, you Happy. I asked you to help pick out clothes, but you fell asleep, just wait for me. After saying that, Pepper angrily returned to the room with her slippers on. Boom. It's not like you don't know what taste Tony likes, why ask me? Besides, is it necessary to get up so early to put on makeup? The plane hasn't arrived yet. Happy rubbed his feet and whispered. The end of May in New York is the most comfortable time. The temperature remains between 17 and 25 degrees Celsius. You can wear a shirt and t-shirt during the day and just add a light jacket at night. Pepper, who had changed into a long skirt, looked radiant at the moment. Stark One landed slowly. The moment the man appeared, tears flashed in her eyes. Immediately opened his arms ready to give him a big hug. Seeing this, Tony picked up his mustache slightly. I'm still very marketable. The distance was getting closer, and just as Pepper was about to touch him, the wind brought a stench, kind of like horse manure. Pepper's feet moved slightly, crossed a semicircle, and hugged Tony. Luck behind him. You guys are finally back, you're so worried about me, let me see if you're injured. Lark was overwhelmed by the flurry of inquiries. Only one person is left standing messy in the wind. After breakfast, everyone returned to their posts and got busy. Pepper contacted newspapers and other channels to release the explosive information prepared in advance, hoping to drive the company's stock price to a record low today and then buy the bottom. If it still doesn't meet expectations, Lark doesn't mind letting Tony make an appearance on the news, and then cut a wave of leaks. After hearing about a series of incidents involving Obadi, S.H.I.E.L.D., and the Manor, Tony took Ethan headlong into the factory and started the research and development of armor. Abao led his harem group, rolled the road in the factory area, hugging each other and living a life that was not too unrestrained. Lark lay on the balcony studying the panels. With Tony's return, the great era has begun, and it's time to increase our strength. He is now very partial to science. All his strength is in animals, which has too many disadvantages. This is not what he wants. It is the kingly way to attribute thousands of mighty powers to one's own body. After a few exchanges, the gems have given him feedback that his physical fitness has been enhanced. Presumably, as long as he consumes enough energy, he will soon be able to match or even surpass the US team. Set a small goal, earn energy points first. Elementary energy detector. Spend a certain amount of energy to scan the surrounding area for mysterious energy sources. 5 energy points per day. Exploration range 100 meters. After weighing it for a moment, Locke decided not to open it for now. He probably didn't have time to leave the factory before the stocks were settled in the past 2 days, and it would be a waste to exchange them. There's one thing you can do though. Rucker gets up and walks into the elevator. Ding! There are several silver white metal cabins in the huge underground space. 2 familiar figures can be seen through the glass curtain wall, and Stark Group's security guards are responsible for patrolling. Happy is there too, apparently giving some orders to his men. Lark looked around and nodded with satisfaction. This place was originally a vacant warehouse, but he transformed it into a prison. Coulson was still lying on the hospital bed, his face pale, and he had not yet woken up from his coma. The vital signs on the instrument were normal. Lark glanced at it and stopped paying attention, walking to the next room. The muscular man Hawkeye was shirtless, standing upside down against the wall, sweat dripping down his arms and forming a puddle of water. The hormonal breath rushed over. This group of rich women should know about it. Wow, it's amazing. Happy saw Lark. He handed over a chair winkingly. Just as Locke sat down, he smelled a faint creamy smell. He naturally opened his hip pocket and took out a small bag of popcorn. Aren't you motivated to lose weight? Why do you still eat such high-calorie food? I've seen the package, it doesn't say anything. Okay, if it's not written, it's 0 card. Happy said with a straight face. It seems, it makes sense. What the hell? Luke laughed angrily, and waved him away. Click. Jarvis, turn off the one-sided effect. The glass flickered, and Kirkland's eyes moved slightly, but his posture remained unchanged, as if he didn't care at all. Rucker ate a piece of popcorn and pressed the button on the wall. Clint Barton, nicknamed Hawkeye, was born on March 1969, 3 in Waverly, Iowa, the son of a violent butcher. Wife Laura, a full-time housewife, son Cooper just admitted to the University of Chicago, Zeze. The voice was transmitted into the small room, and when the first half of the material was read out, Hawkeye remained expressionless as before. Until Lark said his wife's and son's names, he left his feet off the wall, leaned his body against the glass, and stared at Lark. What do you want to do? Haha, don't worry, I haven't finished reading yet, Luck said, stuffing a popcorn and continuing to turn to the next page. Enlisted in the Army at the age of 20. Participated in the Army Erased and won many medals. Currently working in the Strategy and Bureau. The strength is pretty good. Lark praised. Such a powerful salary must be very high. Let me see how much you pay per month. I found it, 1 month. Only $7,000. Quote. Locke raised his head suddenly, and the popcorn flopped on the ground. He was startled. Isn't Hawkeye a key member of S.H.I.E.L.D.? He performs the most dangerous missions, not to mention $3,000 to $50,000, maybe $20,000 a month. Result. Only this little money. Send beggars. In the past, Lark had no one to admire, but now he has one, black braised egg. Corrupt the council at the top, and detain the subordinates at the bottom. Absolutely. Locke put away the tablet, arranged his clothes solemnly, and showed the kindest smile in his life. Under the strange eyes of Hawkeye. Ahem, Mr. Clint, are you interested in changing your job? Monthly salary, $70,000 US. Hawkeye got stuck in his throat, and he didn't know whether to vomit or not. You collected so much information, and you specifically pointed out my family's information, just to recruit me to work for you. What's the problem? As a boss, isn't it normal to know the family situation, social background and credit history of employees? Aren't you afraid that I will pretend to promise and pass on your information secretly? Locke looked at him strangely, then said, oh, patted his head, and explained. Sorry, blame me for not making it clear. Your position as a fighting coach, and you will be responsible for teaching me to fight for a while. After speaking, he raised his eyebrows and said, I don't mind trying archery either. The implication, you have no access to core secrets. Hawkeye suddenly realized that this made sense. Make a deal. The annual tuition fee of the University of Chicago is $8,000. After a while, Locke returned to the ground with a smile, exchanged several birds and let them fly around the factory. New York Shield. Nick Fury was sitting at his desk reviewing documents, covering his chest and coughing from time to time. There was a dark-skinned young man standing next to him. Bang bang. Fury raised his head, and the dark-skinned boy Jakku put down the documents, opened the door, and greeted the fiery red-haired beauty enthusiastically. However, he rolled his eyes, gave a cold hum, and twisted his waist to leave. It's Natasha, come in. Is the wound healed? Do you want to rest for 2 more days? Natasha smiled and said progressively. There's no need for the director, you should work hard while you are young, otherwise when will you save US dollars? This is the summary of Hawkeye's latest mission report, please take a look. Fu Rui subconsciously covered his chest, always feeling that his heart would stop at any time. He closed his eyes and waved. I won't read the report, you can dictate the key points. On May 7th, I was recruited by Lark as a fighting coach, with a monthly salary of $70,000, eating top-quality steaks every day, staying in luxurious rooms, and driving. Natasha. Ahem. On May 10th, Tony announced the closure of Stark's weapons manufacturing department, and the stock plummeted, but they were happy all night. It's strange. On May 10th, the teaching of fighting officially started. After the training, Lark was carried back to the room by Happy. On May 10th, he recovered completely. There is a problem. Tony has been in the factory for 2 days, and he seems to be developing something. On May 11th, I tried to sneak into the factory to get information. Jarvis discovered me and the leopard knocked me unconscious. On May 13th, security in that area was tightened, and I couldn't find a chance. On May 20th, the exterior wall of the factory was dented and looked a bit like a humanoid. Lark asked me to be his driver and take him around New Jersey. May 21st, New Jersey. May 22nd, Manhattan. 23, hanging out in Brooklyn. On the 24th, hanging out in Brooklyn. Director, it's over. Natasha put down the report. Fury tapped his fingers on the report and asked, I want to hear your thoughts. Natasha thought for a moment and said, first of all, from those miraculous leopards, it can be seen that he should have some kind of treasure that can make animals, people, mutate. Enhance. That's why he can recover so quickly. Secondly, the things Tony is researching should be related to the things Rumlow brought from the cave. The details must wait for the analysis report of the technical department. As for hanging out, I can't guess. Nada shook her head. Black Braised Egg picked up the report and read it carefully, and finally picked up a pen to circle stock, leopard, and Tony respectively. Why circle the stock? Aren't they always taking back the company's equity? Natasha looked confused. Putting down the pen, Fury pressed the button. Send Rumlow and Barbara to my office. After a while, 2 people pushed the door and entered. The leader was a blonde beauty, tall, with a bulging figure outlined in tight-fitting combat uniforms, and she looked charming when she walked. He greeted Fury first, and then nodded slightly to Natasha. They have a good relationship. Director, Fury said, and took out 3 documents from the drawer and put them on the table. Natasha, this is the notice of the Stark Group's Board of Directors meeting. You will attend it on my behalf in 2 days, and at the same time find out what their new project is. It must not be that simple for Lark to recover his equity in such a hurry. Barbara, this is your new task. You are in charge of joining Tony's secretarial team and seeing what he's up to lately. When it was Rumlow's turn at last, he was in a daze. Coulson used to be in charge of such matters, but now he was not used to changing people all at once. The fact that Coulson was imprisoned wasn't even the point. Fury pushed the last document in front of Rumlow and said, you. Boom. Director, I got it. The door was violently pushed open, and a bearded man in a white coat rushed in, his face flushed and excited. Fury frowned, and looked at him unkindly, as if saying, give me a reason not to kill you. The man in the white coat walked back and forth in the office excitedly, completely immersed in his own world, and kept talking. Tony Stark is really a genius. He extracted the palladium element from all the terrorists' missiles, melted it into rings, and then used some technology to make it into a mini arc reactor. Director, do you know what this means? As he spoke, he opened his arms, looked up at the sky, and trembled. He has opened the door to a new world for mankind. After saying that, I couldn't control it anymore, and there were tears in the corners of my eyes. The four looked at each other, except for Barbara. The other three quickly came to the table. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.